Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto is trained by Hiruzen and Jiraiya part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Sarutobi stared solemnly into his crystal ball, once again trying to peek in on Naruto. It had been 1 full week since he had last seen the boy, and he was starting to think it was a bad idea to actually tell the young ninja the truth about who he was and the greatness he could obtain. The meeting had not ended well and Naruto barely even spoke to him after learning the truth. When the crystal ball glowed brightly for a moment, Hiruzen looked hopeful, at least until it calmed down and returned to normal seconds afterwards. Sighing, he slipped the ball away again and shook his head. Naruto-kun, I hope that you will forgive me for lying to you all this time. I haven't even told the council about this yet, though I should have held a meeting later that very night. What am I supposed to do now? The Sandaime Hokage was broken from his thoughts as he felt a cool breeze waft through the room, gently knocking a few papers about on his desk. Smirking softly to himself, the elderly Hokage closed his eyes and nodded his head. Good day, Jiraiya-kun. I take it you have a lead on her whereabouts finally? Jiraiya slowly closed the window before taking a seat across from his old sensei. Closing his eyes, he crossed one of his legs over the other and frowned. Before I get into that, I want to know why the hell Naruto's gone and secluded himself the way he has. What the hell did you say to him, old man? Hiruzen groaned and lightly hit his forehead against his desk before digging around in his desk for his pipe. After all the shit with Orochimaru, you want to tear into me already? I still say we were lucky to get through that. It's a miracle I'm even alive, Jiraiya-kun. Glancing into his student's eyes, the old man sighed heavily and shook his head. I'm too old for this shit. I told Naruto-kun the truth. About everything, Jiraiya-kun. About his parents, about the Kyuubi, and what we know, about my laws put in place to protect him, about his parents' wishes for him, about you and Tsunade-chan being his godparents. I told him everything. Since then, Naruto-kun has hidden himself away inside of his parents' compound, and I haven't seen hide nor hair from him since. I was hoping perhaps he would have remained in contact with his friends, Kakashi-kun, or even you, but by all accounts I've heard, nobody has seen him since I told him the truth. When Jiraiya looked about ready to erupt and yell at him, Hiruzen raised his hand and shook his head as he finally retrieved his pipe from his desk. Lighting it, the old man took a few puffs and narrowed his eyes at his student. Don't say a word, Jiraiya-kun, until I am done. Hear me out, hear my reasons behind what I did, and then you can speak your mind. Is that understood? When Jiraiya simply nodded and narrowed his eyes in return, Hiruzen nodded, letting out another heavy sigh. Good. Rising from his chair, the Sandaime Hokage took a few steps towards the windows behind him and peered out over Konoha. Bringing his pipe up to his lips, the elderly man closed his eyes and chewed a moment on the tip before he took a few more puffs and shook his head, letting out his breath slowly. I promoted Naruto to Chunin Jiraiya. He proved himself more than capable during the exams, especially when he took it upon himself to go above and beyond the call of duty to bring down the Ichibi Jinchuriki. Whether you knew it or not, I was left with specific instructions to tell Naruto the truth when one of 2 conditions was met. Keeping his back to Jiraiya, Hiruzen smirked a bit and shook his head as he stared off in the direction of the Uzumaki Namikaze's grounds. 1. When Naruto turned the age of 16. Or option 2, when Naruto made the rank of Chunin. I had also decided that if I deemed Naruto mature enough that I would tell him then if either of the other options applied. Why? Because unlike most people in this village, I have faith in the boy. I have to call a council meeting soon, Jiraiya-kun, to announce to people Naruto's heritage. It's not something that can be hidden forever. What worries me is how everyone will react. Before he could speak on the matter any further, Jiraiya shot up from his chair and interrupted him. You know damn well how they'll react, old man. They'll call you a liar, and they'll demand his death for nothing. Then that bastard Danzo, he'll want Naruto even more than before. He'll begin actively trying to recruit my godson into Root so he can truly turn him into a damn weapon. And what would you actually do about it? Nothing. The scars my godson's been through so damn much, and you didn't even lift a finger. What did you do? You declared a fucking law saying he wasn't to be adopted by anyone. You left him to suffer on his own when somebody could have truly taken care of him. When the Sandaime spun around on his heels, leveling a majority of his killer intent on his student, Jiraiya began to snarl and took a step closer, doing his best to ignore his sensei's misdirected anger. He may not have any scars on his body thanks to his unnatural healing ability, but there are some scars that just don't leave a person, Hokage-sama. The things he's been through, he hasn't confided everything in me just yet. But Kami, damn it, old man, you let him suffer so much throughout his childhood. You let the different branches of the council and those 3 bastards push you around and decide everything you're allowed to do. There were plenty of people that could have raised him, protected him. I understand if you were worried about those Hyuga or Uchiha bastards, but what about the others? The Nara clan could have taken him in and taught him so much. Those idiots at the academy purposely sabotaged him every chance they got, all because you fucked up, old man. By now, Jiraiya and the Sandaime were mere inches apart, the two of them practically snarling at one another. Still, Jiraiya wouldn't let his sensei get another word in until everything he wanted to say had been said. The Yamanaka clan could have adopted him. The Inuzuka clan could have easily taken him in. The Akimichis. There were enough people that could have easily taken him in and kept him safe. But because of your stupidity, my godson suffered and suffered and suffered, and you didn't do shit to help him. If it wasn't for my spy network. Hiruzen took this moment to interrupt, and waved his pipe in front of Jiraiya's face before forcing him back away from him. Listen here, Jiraiya, and listen well. I did what I did to keep that poor boy safe. It may not have been the best decision, but damn it, I'm not perfect. And you sent the boy money so he could feed and clothe himself, but did you ever actually take the time to pay him a visit once or twice a month? Of course not. You're just as guilty of abandoning Naruto-kun as I am, and don't you dare try to deny it. I've made mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes, Jiraiya-kun, but so have you. And then on top of that, Tsunade. Jiraiya reached out and gripped the Hokage's collar, hoisting him off the floor and shaking him for a moment before the Hokage's personal ANBU appeared around him with swords pointed at various vital points on his body. Grumbling, the Toad Sannin shook his head and set his sensei back on his feet before looking away. You leave Tsunadeheim out of it, old man. The shit she's been through, you can't honestly blame her. I doubt she even truly knows about him. If Tsunadeheim knew about our godson, I'm sure she would have come back. I'm sure she would have done everything in her power for him. But that's neither here nor then. What matters is that we've failed Naruto-kun. All of us. And with him knowing the truth, I wouldn't blame him if he wanted to burn this whole village to the ground and us right along with it. We lied to him, old man. Hiruzen waved off his ANBU and sat in his chair again, with Jiraiya taking a seat on the couch and staring blankly his way. Yes, we have. I actually have an idea, Jiraiya-kun, if you're willing to hear me out? When his student nodded his head slowly after taking a few minutes to calm himself, the elderly Hokage nodded his head. Good. I want you to take Naruto-kun and go in search of Tsunade-chan. Whatever it takes, I want you to bring her back here. I'm hoping you don't have to get physical with her, and I don't mean it in that way, so don't even think about that in my office. Anyways, sighing heavily, Hiruzen set down his now empty pipe and closed his eyes as he folded his hands before his face, letting his chin rest atop the now intertwined fingers. I want Tsunade-chan to take over as Godame Hokage, Jiraiya-kun. And I think if you take Naruto-kun along and allow him to meet her, I don't know how to explain it other than a feeling I have, but I think she might actually come back for him if nothing else. But more than that, it's important for the two of them to heal and return to normal. We can't let them continue on as they are. Jiraiya nodded slowly and sighed. I understand, old man. I'll go see if I can't talk to the kid. Maybe if I tell him that he and I are going on a mission, he'll actually come out and talk to me for a change. Shrugging, the old pervert rose from where he sat and patted his legs. Mind making this an official mission, old man? I don't care if you call it a C rank or an A rank, just write something up and help me out here so I can get the kid out of the village. I already know where she's at, and it won't take the two of us too long to get there. Perhaps I can even teach the Gaki something along the way. I'm more concerned about the results of this council meeting you're going to tonight. Be careful and don't let them pull any of their usual shit with you. Okay, old man? When Hiruzen simply nodded with another heavy, long, drawn-out sigh, Jiraiya grinned and patted him on the shoulders. Good. Now. Naruto, Uzumaki Namake's compound, master bedroom, 15 minutes later. Have you figured it out yet, Naruto? It was a gruff voice that echoed inside the young man's head that spoke to him. This voice belonged to the Kyuubi, the most powerful of all the 9 Bijou. When her container simply shook his head and scoffed, the Kyuubi sighed softly inside his head. Not yet. My Two Sans Jutsu seems a bit more complicated than I had originally anticipated, Kyuubi. The Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, was one of Two Sans' trademark techniques from what I've heard and read thus far, but the damn thing is just so complicated. Still, if I can figure this out, then maybe. Naruto frowned and shook his head. Naruto, I understand. I already agreed to help you, but you're going to need to recruit allies if you want to succeed. You can't do it all on your own, and you're not going to be able to find all the allies you need here in Konoha. If I was outside, I could help you, but there's only so much one can do when they're trapped inside a cell such as mine. The blonde-haired young man closed his eyes and began to roll up the scrolls he had laid out on his new bed. I already told you, Kyuubi, I'm working on it. Just be patient while I figure something out. Yes, during the week, the young Uzumaki had chosen to contact the Kyuubi. The two of them have shared a mental link since then. Together, they worked on perfecting his new jutsu, among other things. Kyuubi had taken it upon herself to teach Naruto what she could, while instructing him to read through the various scrolls in his new home while he had his privacy for information on his parents, their jutsu, and their history. Aside from all that though, the two of them continued to make plans about where to go from here and what to do along the way. So far, the two of them had decided that the Sandaime Hokage could no longer be trusted. Naruto had decided, with the Kyuubi's help, to wait until the Hokage announced to the village about who Naruto's parents were so he could gauge their reactions. Depending on what happened from there, it would help him to decide his next actions. All in all, the blonde Chunin had formulated several plans with Kyuubi's help, and whatever he decided to do would be somewhat dependent on what the people of Konoha did with the information they would be receiving soon. Both Naruto and Kyuubi suddenly froze when they sensed somebody trying to bypass the security seals he had set up earlier in the week to keep people off his property. Groaning, the blonde-haired young man hurriedly put away his things, grabbed hold of a kunai, and moved out of the room. Within seconds he was outside, glaring daggers at the direction of his compound's gate. Upon noticing who it was, the Chunin sighed and shook his head, quickly putting away his kunai. It's just him. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. As Naruto moved towards the gate to allow Jiraiya in, Kyuubi decided to voice her opinion on the man. Naruto. Are you sure you can trust this man? You were with him for that full month and he didn't tell you a thing about your parents, or who he really is to you. In fact, he barely taught you anything. And for that matter, why the hell hasn't he been around for you? The young blonde sighed and shook his head, freezing in his tracks as he did. As he went to reply, Naruto noticed Jiraiya waving at him to let him in. Frowning, Naruto raised one of his hands and held a finger up. One sec Hiruzen, I'll be right with you. Quickly choosing to ignore Jiraiya's little rant about the nickname, Naruto tuned him out and spoke to Kyuubi. I've known this man for a month, Kyuubi. I can't make a judgment call based on such a short amount of time spent with him. He helped me out a lot during the month, so he deserves at least the benefit of the doubt for now. I'll talk to him and give him a chance to explain himself. Depending on how he answers, I can either forgive him or condemn him like I did the old man. Kyuubi simply huffed, but conceded to the young man. Shrugging his shoulders, Naruto walked over and allowed Jiraiya inside his compound. Come on in, Hiruzen. I'll make some tea and you can tell me why you've come on by, okay? Jiraiya frowned, but nodded his head and followed his pupil inside his home. Seating himself upon a couch in the living room, the perverted hermit watched Naruto for a time before shaking his head and sighing softly. Naruto, what must you think of me now that you've learned the truth? I lied to you. I wasn't there for you when I should have been. I can only imagine the kinds of thoughts running through your mind right now. The elderly toad sage was snapped from his thoughts when Naruto returned and handed him his tea. Tea, thanks, Naruto. Let me get right down to business. Crossing one leg over the other, Jiraiya blew on his tea softly for just a moment before taking a sip and grinning at his young student. I spoke with the old man Naruto. He told me what happened and how he hasn't seen you in a week. But rather than get into that particular situation, I'd like to get to the main reason I popped on over today. It's kind of important, Naruto, so hear me out before you say anything, okay? Seeing the young Uzumaki Namikaze nod after taking his seat, Jiraiya chose to watch him for a time while the two of them sipped their tea. After being silent for a good 2 minutes, Jiraiya finally breathed out a sigh and nodded his head. Naruto, I'm going to bring you with me on a mission. The two of us are going off in search of Tsunade, your godmother. The old man wants her to become the next Hokage, but I'm not so sure we're going to get that lucky with her. At best, we might be able to convince her to head the hospital and train new medics. Heck, our current medics could learn more than a thing or two from her. But I'd also like for her to get to know her godson. I think she'd be real proud of you, Naruto. Naruto listened as his godfather explained the mission in further detail for a short while longer before he finally put his teacup down on the coffee table and nodded his head. Before I actually agree to go with you, can you just answer something for me? Seeing the white-haired man nod, Naruto looked at him and sighed heavily. Why didn't you tell me who you really were to me? And for that matter, why weren't you there for me? Insulted, harassed, beaten, I was never given a fucking chance growing up. Even now that I'm a shinobi, they still try things from time to time. I thought if I could prove myself to these people, show them that they were wrong about me. The blonde shook his head and groaned before punching his fist into the couch seat next to him. Why weren't you there for me, Hiruzen? Was it so hard to just come on by and see me from time to time? That would have been enough. Just to know that somebody fucking cared about me. That I had some semblance of family in the world. Do you even care about me, Jiraiya? Or am I just another fucking gaki to you? By now, Naruto's eyes were flashing dangerously between their usual blue color to red with slit pupils. Jiraiya, seeing how angry and hurt his godson was, frowned and brought a hand over his chest, clutching at the fabric covering it tightly. Naruto. You're not just another gaki to me. You're my godson. On top of that, you're the child of my old pupil, Minato Namikaze. You are dear to me and I do care for you. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I'm not going to try and make some big excuse to try and make you forgive me, but I'll tell you this. Besides having my spy network to run, things were dangerous on the road. I would have brought you with me if I could have. I should have visited you earlier, spent some time with you something. But damn it, I didn't. The old man and I already fought about this, and I just, no matter what I think up, it just doesn't sound right. You deserved so much better, Naruto. The super pervert looked into his godson's eyes and clenched his teeth together. After a time, he lowered his head and closed his eyes, fighting back the tears. The way those people have treated you. Your parents would be so ashamed of this village. Danzo wants to use you as a tool, a weapon, the old man's teammates are on his side, the civilian council wants you dead, half the damn people in this village have tried to kill you. I'm amazed you haven't run away or given up already. I'm amazed you're still as kind a person as you are. After all you've been through, anybody else would have lost their minds. Naruto closed his eyes again and shook his head. Tell me, Ero-sensei, what would you have done if you were in my place? Jiraiya froze for a moment and looked in his godson's eyes again. Frowning, he scratched the back of his head and shrugged. Honestly, Gaki? I don't really know what I would have done. I could have ended up swearing vengeance like your friend, Sasuke. I could have turned into another Orochimaru, or I could have killed myself. Any number of things could have happened. I don't really know for sure what I would have done, Naruto. Chuckling softly to himself, the blonde Gaki shook his head and smiled. Makes sense, I suppose. Jiraiya-sensei, I'll give you a chance, okay? Don't go running off on me without telling me first and giving me a damn good reason for it. I never got to experience what it's like to have a mom and dad like other kids do. So I'd appreciate it if you'd at least stick around and spend some time with me. Help me out with my training. Whatever you can do for me. And when we bring Tsunade back, I expect the same of her as well. What do you think? Jiraiya smirked and nodded his head before finishing the rest of his tea. Sounds like a good idea, Naruto. I didn't plan to go leaving you so soon anyways. But would you mind telling me something? What are your plans now that you know everything? I get the feeling you're pretty pissed at the old man. The young Chunin sighed and nodded before helping his godfather off the couch. Yeah, I'm pissed. It's hard to forgive him for what he did. He's the entire freaking reason I wasn't adopted. Coming up with a fucking law saying nobody could adopt me, what kind of bullshit is that? Realizing he was letting his anger get the better of him again, Naruto took a few deep, calming breaths and closed his eyes again. You asked about my plans, right? Seeing his godfather nod again, the boy breathed out another breath and nodded. To be perfectly honest with you, my plans depend on what the villagers and my friends choose to do once they learn the truth about who I am. I won't say any more than that just yet. Walking off with the now empty teacups, Naruto rinsed them out and set them aside before turning back to face Jiraiya. That's fair, Naruto. Go on and get yourself ready. I'll wait for you at the main gate in 10 minutes. I'd like to leave as soon as possible so we don't lose her. That and the council meeting is being held tonight. Sooner we get out of here, the better. We'll let them soak in the information while we're gone. When we come back, we'll have their true reactions. Sound good? Getting an affirmative nod from his godson, Jiraiya patted him on the head and smirked. See you in a bit, Gaki. And with that, Jiraiya was off while Naruto went off to pack his things. Later that night, council meeting room. Hiruzen Sarutobi sat in his chair, his face in his hands as he listened to all the hubbub in the room. People were discussing what this particular meeting was actually about. From what everyone was saying, Hiruzen was fairly certain that he was the only one in the room with any knowledge of the true reasons behind this particular meeting. Raising his head, the Sandaime Hokage rubbed his tired eyes and shook his head before calling for everyone's attention. I've noticed that you are all wondering just what this particular meeting is about. There are a few reasons. Firstly, I would like to inform you all about two rogue ninja that infiltrated the village earlier today. These two ninja were Kisame Hashigaki, former member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist, and Itachi Uchiha, the person responsible for the Uchiha massacre. As the whole room went silent and gasped, Hiruzen nodded his head and closed his eyes, folding his hands before him and resting his chin atop his hands. These two are now members of a group known as Akatsuki. They came to the village searching for Naruto Uzumaki. Frowning, he shook his head and glanced over his shoulder towards Danzo and his old teammates before looking forward once again. They seek the QB sealed away inside of him. Their organization's exact purpose is unknown to us at the moment, but Jiraiya and his spy network are going to continue observing them and relaying whatever information they can, when they can. Unfortunately, they didn't leave without incident. Shooting a quick glare at the civilian council, hoping they got the message to stay quiet, Hiruzen quickly continued. Jonin's Karina Yuhi, Asuma Sarutobi, Kakashi Hatake, and Might Guy confronted them when they arrived. However, Kakashi is currently in the hospital in a coma of some kind. He battled Itachi and unfortunately could not quite measure up. Shortly afterwards, the two criminals left the village and have not been seen since. The Sandaime could not continue to speak as he was soon interrupted by a rather rude civilian council member. Rising up from his seat, the brown-haired, blue-eyed man was practically snarling at the Hokage. Why didn't we just let those criminals take the demon brat? We could have finally been rid of the little monster once and for all. Now, instead of being rid of the brat, one of our top jonin is in a coma, and you're still protecting that wretched demon. Explain yourself? Fuming by this point, Hiruzen waved his hand and sent a silent signal to one of his ANBU. Within an instant, the councilman's head was rolling along the floor while his body slumped to the ground where he once stood. I shouldn't have to say this, but I will anyways because you council members seem to be going senile far faster than even I am. Do not talk about Naruto Uzumaki in that way. Keep it up and I'll personally destroy every one of you for everything you have ever done to him. You're fucking monsters and I will not have you treating the people of Konoha in such a way. Now sit down, shut up, and listen, all of you. After that little outburst from the Hokage, everyone quickly shut up and sat staring at their Hokage with wide eyes. After he finally calmed down, Hiruzen smirked and nodded his head. Good. The next order of business actually ties in with this Akatsuki business. Not too long ago, Sasuke Uchiha left the village. It seems he overheard a conversation taking place in the hospital in reference to his brother and Kakashi's condition. It doesn't take a genius to know what's going through the boy's mind. I have already sent Might Guy, Kurina Yuhi, and Asuma Sarutobi in search of the boy, so the Uchiha will be returned to us in short order. However, I would like to hear opinions on what should be done to punish the boy for his reckless behavior upon his return to Konoha. Any suggestions? As expected, the civilian council immediately blew up at this. The leader, one Kihari Haruno, Sakura Haruno's pudgy, green-eyed, yellow-haired aunt, rose from her seat and narrowed her eyes at the Hokage. Why would you even suggest such a thing? Sasuke-kun is well within his rights to seek vengeance for his clan. The civilian council refuses to seek punishment against him for doing what he feels to be right. Before anyone else could say anything, Danzo stepped forward and smirked. The boy obviously lacks discipline, Hokage-sama. You could always simply let me have him. I could very easily, beat him into shape, so to speak, of course. He would learn respect very quickly then, I assure you. Hamura and Kohara both nodded their heads in agreement to that, both clearly expecting the civilian council members to quickly side with them. However, what happened next shocked everyone in the room. Kihari turned red and shook her head furiously from left to right. Absolutely not. You will not touch that darling boy. If you want the well, if you want Naruto, you can take that little shit, but you will not touch Sasuke-kun. Feeling a sudden pressure weighing down on her, Sakura's aunt turned slowly to stare into what she was certain was her doom should she even consider speaking again. Quickly taking her seat, the yellow-haired woman went quiet and didn't speak another word. Growling angrily at the audacity of these people, Hiruzen turned to his shinobi council and waved for them to speak up. What do you have to say? Forget these idiots, they clearly don't appreciate that Sasuke has left the village without orders and needs to be reprimanded for his actions. Actually, in fact, before you even speak, the elderly Hokage turned to the civilian council and waved his hand towards the door. You, civilian council, get the hell out of here. I won't have you polluting these meetings anymore with your bullshit. All you ever seem to talk about ever since Naruto had the QB sealed inside of him is, why do you protect him, Hokage-sama? Naruto needs to die. And so on and so on. From here on, don't even bother showing yourselves to these meetings. The civilian council is hereby disbanded. The shit you've pulled behind my back with these three behind me has been plenty enough to warrant this decision. So get lost and don't come back. When the civilians went to argue, the Hokage raised his killing intent and focused it on the group until they finally got the message and left the room. Turning, he glared back at his three friends and smirked. Anything you three want to say? Or can I get the Shinobi Council's opinion now, since they're clearly the only ones who actually care to get anything reasonable discussed and done around here? When the three elders shook their heads no, Hiruzen smirked and turned to the Shinobi Council, signaling that they could speak finally. Shikaku Nara was the first to speak up with his opinion. Despite the arrogance he has continuously displayed, and the way he made everyone wait on him as if he is something truly special when it came time for his match in the Chunin exams, I can't justifiably suggest we revoke his status as a ninja. I would very much like if that were to happen, but unfortunately, he hasn't done anything to truly warrant such a drastic action just yet. Therefore, confinement to the village for at least a month and perhaps some coaching from someone such as Ibiki Marino would be in order. Sasuke certainly needs to learn respect and manners, and Ibiki could very well teach them to him. What does everyone here think? Hiruzen smirked as the rest of the Shinobi Council quickly agreed, some even offering to let her dogs tear Sasuke a new one in the process. Nodding his head, Hiruzen smirked back at the elders once more before announcing that Sasuke would be receiving his punishment as soon as he was back in the village. After a time, the old man folded his hands again and rested his chin atop his intertwined fingers once more. Now on to the final matter that needs discussing this night. Sighing to himself, the elderly Hokage shook his head and looked up towards the ceiling. It's time you learned of Naruto's heritage, and why I chose to do what I did all those years ago. Now that he has made the rank of Chunin, I have informed him of who his parents are and bestowed upon him the gifts his parents left to him. Glancing around at everybody, he let out another deep sigh and closed his eyes. Naruto's full name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. This should easily tell you who his parents were. Sum picked up on it faster than even Shikaka did, and quickly shot up from her seat and slammed her hands down upon the table before her. Are you telling me the kid's Kushina and Yandame-sama's son? What the hell, Sandame-sama? If that's the case, why didn't you let me adopt him all those years ago? You refused me every fucking time, even knowing how dear she was to me. Hiruzen sighed and rubbed his forehead tiredly. Like I said, I'll explain it all shortly. But yes, you have it right. Naruto's parents are Minato Namikaze, the Yandame Hokage himself, and his wife Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto is truly the last of the Uzumaki clan as we know it, and he's the Yandame's legacy in the flesh. I will announce this to the villagers in the morning, but for now I'd like opinions. Inoichi took this moment to speak up. If he truly is their son, and I'm not saying I don't believe you, don't get me wrong, then those who actually believe it might demand that he be put into the Ciare Hokage-sama. They might try to use the Yandame's son for breeding purposes. It's wrong, I know that, but I can understand the reasoning behind why they might choose to argue in favor of such a thing. The Hokage shook his head and narrowed his eyes as he looked at the table beneath his elbows. I absolutely refuse to force Naruto-kun into such a thing against his will. He hasn't spoken to me in a week and he's got seals intact that prevent me from spying on him. My best guess is that Naruto is currently furious at me for keeping such secrets from him, and even more furious with me for the laws I put into place that prevented him from being adopted by those who actually wanted him. It's going to take some work to regain his trust and set things right, and the Ciare would only make things worse. So I will refuse that adamantly. For a good time, the remaining council members continued to speak about Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, and about what would be said in the morning. In the meantime, Danzo and the elders, Hamura and Koharu, were currently trying to formulate their own plans for little Naruto. Whatever would benefit them in the end was exactly what they were going to try and pull off. Soon enough, Danzo disappeared, leaving everyone to their own devices. This only gives me even more reason to get that sniveling little Gaki on my side. Possessing Naruto would earn me such leeway. I could control everything. Meanwhile, Shakuba Town, in second floor. Jiraiya and Naruto chose to rest in a small town known as Shakuba Town for the night. They had been traveling all afternoon and evening, but they hadn't reached their target yet, a place called Tanzaka Quarters. That was the location where Tsunade was currently said to be, and with the festival taking place, the chances were that she would be there for some time yet before moving on. After moving out from Shakuba Town in the morning, the traveling duo should be able to reach the lively town by midday if there were no distractions. Sadly, despite Jiraiya's promises to train him along the way, he had chosen to run off with some woman shortly after paying for their room for the night. So, deciding to let the old man have his fun, Naruto ventured to their room, locked the door, and sat upon the bed so he could resume looking through his scrolls. I really don't see why you even bothered giving him another chance. Look at what he's doing. You'll have to continuously use that horrendous Oiroke no Jutsu, sexy technique, on him if you ever want to learn anything. You realize that, don't you? The Kyuubi criticized, clearly not happy with Jiraiya and his perverse antics. Naruto simply chuckled and shook his head in response as he unfurled the scroll and began to read. Think about it, Kyuubi. Since when does any woman actually flirt with Ero-sensei? Naruto questioned as he read through the instructions for another Suiton, water release, jutsu that he found in one of his mother's scrolls. As he did this, Kyuubi pondered over his question for a moment before replying. Actually, now that you mention it, the old fool never could get any attention from the women you two saw during that month. He kept getting pummeled by them for being a disgusting old pervert. That and he's what? 50 years old? Naruto chuckled and shook his head. Heck if I know, Kyuubi. But you're starting to see my point. Unless that woman's a prostitute or something, there's no way she'd just approach us and start flirting with the old man like that. And judging from the way she was dressed and the rest of her appearance, she certainly doesn't look like a prostitute. So, based on that information, what conclusion can you draw, Kyuubi? The Kyuubi was silent for only a few moments before her voice rang out in his head again. Something's going to happen. Somebody tried to lure him away so they could get to you. That's the conclusion you've come to, isn't it, Naruto? Chuckling to himself as he began practicing the hand seals for the jutsu he was studying up on, the blonde nodded his head. Yep. And I just let it happen because I'm curious to see what someone could possibly want with little ol' me. Kyubi was definitely not happy to hear that, but she understood. In truth, she was curious as well. At the same time, however, they both had a bad feeling about their current situation, and Naruto wanted to prepare himself for a conflict should it come down to that. Kyubi came to the decision that if a fight broke out, she'd willingly feed her friend as much chakra as he needed, so long as it was within reasonable amounts. Too much, and without the proper training, and it could very well tear his body apart, and that was something she just didn't want. The two of them didn't have to wait long before they both felt a dark presence outside of their room. Quickly slipping away his scrolls once more, Naruto waited patiently. When he finally heard knocking on his door, the young Chunin quietly put his hands together in a familiar hand seal and summoned forth 6 shadow clones. Using the Henji no Jutsu transformation technique, Naruto transformed into a small scroll that one of his shadow clones picked up and tossed to another one that hid itself in the corner nearest the door. When the only visible shadow clone moved over and opened the door, Naruto and his clones listened carefully, waiting to hear what their possible opponent might want. When his clone didn't instantly recognize the duo standing outside the door, Naruto began to rack his brain as to what strangers would want with him. It was then that he heard them speak, and what they said had him concerned. "They want you, Kyubi. Who are these guys?" Before Kyubi could respond, the clone that opened the door left the room, making sure to leave the door open as he did, just in case. Smirking inwardly, Naruto sent a mental signal to the clone that was currently holding him. When the taller of the two enemies talked about chopping his clone's legs off, the clone holding the real Naruto formed a single hand seal and the shadow clone outside in the hall exploded, sending both opponents flying from the blast. With another signal, all the shadow clones revealed themselves and leaped out of the room to check on the enemies. One clone stepped forward, pretending to be the real Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. "Itachi, tell me why the hell you're after me. What the hell do you want with me and the Kyubi?" Kisame Hashigaki was the first of the two Akatsuki members to shake off the force of the explosion. Laughing, he looked at the clones and shook his head. "Damn brat. I thought you said the brat was a dumb shit, Itachi? That little display was something else entirely. He was clearly expecting us, and he even knows a high-level jutsu. Look, fucking shadow clones. Makes me wonder what else this little punk knows." Twirling Samahata around in his hand, the fish man smirked to himself as he looked each of the clones over. Itachi simply brushed himself off as he stepped forward to stand beside his partner. "It would seem he's learned a few things since becoming a genin, but it isn't enough to deter us. And I'm afraid even my Sharingan isn't enough to tell the real Naruto apart from his shadow clones. Seeing as he's choosing to be difficult, you should go ahead and let loose until the real one chooses to show himself. Just don't go drawing too much attention to yourself, Kisame. We're trying to play it low-key." Narrowing his eyes, the Uchiha looked between each of the clones and tried to figure out which of the clones was the real Naruto. When he still couldn't, he shook his head and sighed. "Go on. Make it quick." Kisame smirked at this and took a step forward, holding Samahata out in front of him. "Sounds good to me, Itachi-san. Now, which of you little punks wants to try me first?" When the clone holding the Naruto scroll stepped forward and began flashing through hand seals, Kisame quirked an eyebrow. "Interesting, what's the little gaki up to?" When the clone finished its hand seals, it brought a hand up to its mouth and smirked. "Enjoy fish breath. Futon, Bakuhatsu Tikana no Dangan, wind release, explosive air bullets." The clone quickly began to fire a series of tiny air bullets from its mouth straight at the Akatsuki members. Itachi, seeing this attack, quickly went through a series of hand seals and brought his hand up to his mouth as well. "Katon, Gokaki no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique." A moment after Kisame hopped back behind his partner, the two techniques collided and the area around them literally exploded, taking most of the second floor of the inn with it. When the smoke finally cleared, Itachi narrowed his eyes and glared across at the clones. "That was a dangerous maneuver, Naruto-kun. Are you trying to kill the people staying here? That doesn't sound like you." When Naruto simply shrugged and smirked across at him, Itachi narrowed his eyes further and shook his head. "I must admit, I'm disappointed in you. But no matter, we are here to take you, Naruto-kun, so stop resisting." Before anyone could even say anything more, a voice rang out from the other end of the now destroyed hallway. Naruto, recognizing the voice, groaned inwardly, and if he could have, he would have been shaking his head in exasperation. "Itachi! I promised myself I'd kill you. You murdered everybody. Sasuke, you idiot. Of course you wouldn't come here to help me, it's all about your stupid vengeance. Kami forbid you actually come to help a friend." Itachi turned away from the clones and waved his hand behind him. "Kisame, deal with Naruto-kun, please. It seems my dear Ototo has come to pay me a visit. Who am I to deny him his wishes?" Kisame smirked and nodded, eager to have a little fun. "Sure, Itachi-san. You deal with the flesh bag, I'll get the Kyubi brat. I hope you make him scream." It's so much fun to hear them scream. The shark man chuckled to himself before he turned to face off against the clones once more. Now, let's try this again. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo to hell with it. With that, Kisame charged forward, aiming to take out one clone at a time until he finally found the real one. It just wasn't his style to worry about picking out the true Naruto from the crowd of clones. It's way more fun to just kill them all. Kisame snarled as he cut down clone after clone. It seemed to be a never-ending problem, and for each one he cut down, more seemed to appear around him. Damn it, what the hell is going on here? Freaking QB brat, stop hiding already and show me what you've really got. Swinging the Samahata in a wide arc, the shark-like Akatsuki member cut down 3 more clones, only to have 5 more take their place a moment later with another shout of Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Technique. While his opponent became more and more frustrated with the blonde Jinchuriki, Naruto found himself smirking within his mind. Alright. Clones, get ready to enact the plan. Group number 1, I already gave you your orders. You're on the distraction detail. Groups number 2 and number 3, unleash these jutsu when I give the signal. He mentally ordered his clones. As they got into position, he kept close watch over Kisame's actions. Good, keep it up, fish breath. You're going to walk right into my trap. Kisame snarled as he cut down the next wave of clones, only to grimace when he realized his mistake. Fuck. Quickly shielding himself with his arms and Samahata, Kisame felt the blast from the exploding shadow clones and did his best to brace himself so he wouldn't skid back too far. When the brunt of the explosion was over, he snarled and glanced around, the smoke from the explosion starting to clear. You little punk! Just wait until I get my hands on you, QB brat. I'll make you regret trying to toy with me. Before the Akatsuki member could continue his little rant, he saw what the blonde Jinchuriki had prepared for him. Oh Itachi, I am going to kill you for this misinformation. Bracing himself for what was to come, Kisame began to hate taking this job on with his partner more and more. The Naruto clones grinned as the 2 groups announced their techniques. Futon, Daitapa, Wind Release, Great Breakthrough. The first set of clones shouted. The second all began charging at Kisame, each with a Rasengan in hand. These particular jutsu Naruto had studied up on and learned himself during his week of seclusion, though he had to admit that it wasn't easy to get the hang of them. Sure, Kyuubi had helped him a great deal, but the Rasengan especially had been difficult to get the hang of. The jutsus combined, albeit not perfectly. Each Rasengan was powered up by the wind jutsu, but they hadn't perfectly collaborated, creating an imperfect technique. It was enough, however, as each clone slammed their Rasengans into Kisame. Some attacked his back, others tried to take out his sword. Sadly, the sword simply absorbed the chakra while Kisame grunted and took the brunt of the attacks aimed at his back. When the attacks had finished, Kisame swung his sword in a wide arc and took out the remaining clones, clearly angry at what had just transpired. Damn it, Itachi, you fucking lied to me. The brat's clearly not some idiot weakling like you made him out to be. He ruined my fucking cloak for crying out loud and did something to my back. You'd better make up for this mistake later, you bastard. The final Naruto clone sighed and shook his head before reaching down and patting the scroll at his side. Understanding the message, Naruto braced himself for the next attack. Clearly this opponent was out of his league, but he could at least leave some kind of lasting damage on the bastard if he played his cards right. Giving his final clone the signal to step forward and challenge Kisame directly, Naruto focused on the objective at hand and what his next move would be. Kisame looked at the final Naruto clone, clearly assuming it was the real Naruto this time. Finally decided to face me yourself, you stupid brat? Or are you planning to surrender finally? Smirking at that, Kisame stroked his hand along his blade, Samahata, and grinned at the boy. If so, that'd be one hell of a smart decision. However, you've pissed me off, so I hope you don't mind if I take a leg or 2 off. The clone sighed and shook its head before pivoting on one of its feet and moving quickly behind the fish man. Swinging one of his legs up in an attempt to kick the taller man in his side, the clone found its eyes going wide when Samahata was quickly swung around, cleaving him in 2. With a smirk, the clone waved goodbye to the swordsman before poofing out of existence. Fuck. Another damn clone. That's it, brat, where the fuck are you? When I get my hands on you, you're going to regret pissing me off. Smirking to himself, the real Naruto finally dropped his transformation from behind Kisame. The Akatsuki member didn't have any time to react as he soon felt 2 wind-enhanced kunai embedded within his sides. Screaming out in pain, the angry swordsman backhanded Naruto and sent him tumbling along the ground. Fuck. Itachi. Turning, he saw Naruto beginning to tap into the Kyuubi's chakra. Ugh. Damn it, fuck. Stop playing with that runt brother of yours and get over here. The little fuck's getting ready for something big. A short distance away, Itachi Uchiha shook his head before tossing his brother aside. Sasuke had already fallen prey to the Tsukuyomi, and would no longer be interfering with their operation. Watching as Sasuke's head hit the floor, the older of the two Uchiha brothers scoffed. "You are still so weak, Sasuke. Did you truly come here, thinking you could defeat me with such weak abilities?" Shaking his head, Itachi closed his eyes and moved to join Kisame at his side. Upon reaching his partner, Itachi looked at his wounds and found himself donning an amused grin. "Interesting. So he's ruined your cloak, has he, Kisame?" Seeing Kisame's glare now focused on him, Itachi simply shook his head before turning his gaze to the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. "It would seem you've changed a bit, Naruto-kun. Still, you have a long ways to go if you truly hope to measure up to the likes of us." Taking a step forward, Itachi prepared to use the Tsukuyami on Naruto as well, only to find himself halting in his steps. Behind them, Jiraiya had finally made his appearance. Seeing the tall man, Naruto breathed a sigh of relief and released his chakra cloak, choosing instead to collapse to his knees. "About time you got here, Ero-sennin. You're lucky I managed to hold the big guy off as long as I did." Chuckling to himself, the blonde Jinchuriki rose to his feet and watched as the two Akatsuki members fled for the time being. Shaking his head, Naruto looked around at all the destruction. "TCH, I am not paying for all this." Jiraiya frowned at all the destruction as he joined his godson and placed a hand on his shoulder. "All the people that were staying here, what happened to them, Naruto?" Seeing the concern in his godfather's face, Naruto scoffed and looked away. "Don't worry so much. I'm not so heartless yet that I'd just murder a bunch of innocents in a damn fight. While I was setting things up, I used shadow clones to vacate the second floor. When you were escorted off by that woman, I had a feeling something was up. TCH. It was shortly after you left that I began escorting people out of their rooms to safety. I didn't want to have to hold back because I was worried about their safety after all." Jiraiya sighed, clearly relieved that the people of the inn hadn't been hurt in the fight. Still, glancing around, the Sannin found himself groaning as he wondered about who'd have to pay for the damages done to the inn. Before he could truly take the time to think on it, however, he sensed three presences behind him and turned around to see three Konohagakure ninja appear near Sasuke. "Yo! What brings the three of you here?" Kurenai looked between the downed Sasuke to the Toad Sage and shook her head. "We were sent to retrieve the Uchiha. Shortly after you two left, two men in black cloaks appeared in Konoha. Asuma, Guy, Kakashi, and I fought them, but it didn't end well. Kakashi's in a coma after something Itachi did to him." Before she could go on, Kurenai found herself being interrupted by Naruto. "Itachi's one of the bastards that just attacked me. The team over there showed up a short time after I was attacked, but it wasn't to assist me. So, let me guess what happened." Closing his eyes, Naruto brought his left hand up and began rubbing his nose, frustration clearly taking over at this point. "Sasuke team overheard Itachi's name. He heard my name mentioned and went looking for me. Realized I had left the village with Ero-sensei here. From there, he left the village, most likely without permission, and followed my trail here. And, here's the best part in his grand plan, rather than coming here out of some concern for me, even as just a fucking teammate, he had planned to somehow, miraculously kill his traitor of a brother, Itachi Uchiha, and hoped he fucking do. His revenge would be settled and he could go live happily ever after fucking himself in the ass with a wooden spoon. Am I correct there, senseis?" Everyone was looking at Naruto, shock evident on their faces. At least until Jiraiya broke out into a large smile and began to laugh at the top of his lungs. When he finally managed to calm himself down, the Sannin patted his godson on the head. "That's an exceptional way of putting it, Gaki. From what I've heard about the Uchiha brat, that actually sounds like it would be right on the money. Though it looks like his plan didn't quite succeed now, did it?" Naruto shrugged in response. "Of course not. Itachi easily defeated him, and then that happened. Itachi Uchiha clearly did something to his brother, but I don't know what the hell it was. Still, whatever it was, it can't be pretty." The team screamed loud enough for the entire town to hear him. Then again, with me having blown the second floor of the inn to pieces, I suppose that's to be expected. Once again the adults looked to him with bewildered expressions. Kurenai, frowning at this, rose to her feet and began to approach him. "Naruto-kun, are you saying you did all this? What about the people you were fighting? How could you have done all this?" The whiskered blonde grumbled and shook his head. "I'm not the weak fool people think me to be, Kurenai-sensei. Sure, I'm not strong enough to beat those two, but at least I could come up with a plan that would hold them off long enough for Ero-sennin here to arrive. I suppose the best way to explain my strategy would be this: exploding clones. Aside from the initial damage caused by those, the rest of the damage was done when mine and Itachi's jutsu clashed. Pretty big explosion took place then." With a shrug of his shoulders, Naruto turned away and walked back into the remains of his and Jiraiya's room. "I'm done answering questions now. The team could use your help. Get him back to Konoha. Get one of the medics to look him over. I don't give a shit. As for Kakashi, he hasn't exactly done much for me either. Still, once we bring Tsunade back, she should be able to help the two of them. Doesn't matter to me. With another quick shrug, the Namake's boy knelt down and brushed some rubble aside. Finding his and Jiraiya's bags, he tossed Jiraiya's to the Sannin and threw his own over his shoulder. Let's go, Jiraiya-sensei. It seems that we have even more incentive to find Tsunade now. The others watched as Naruto walked off before leaping down to speak with the innkeeper. They overheard the blonde Jinchuriki telling the man to bill Konoha for the damages, much to their dismay. Sighing and shaking his head, Asuma turned to Jiraiya for answers. What the heck happened to Naruto, Jiraiya-sama? Jiraiya sighed and shook his head. That's something you'd have to ask the old man. Something Hokage-sama said to Naruto caused this. That conversation changed something in Naruto-kun, and it worries me. I'm still furious with the old man. I truly am. Shaking his head, Jiraiya walked over to the three and patted them on their shoulders, one at a time. Take the Uchiha brat back to Konoha. When Tsunade heals him, I'm sure he'll have to answer for his actions. I'll be sure to look after Naruto. Now see ya. As Jiraiya walked away, he couldn't help but shake his head and let out another gruff sigh. So much for getting some rest for the night. Have to admit I wasn't expecting this to happen. The three Jonin sensei watched as Jiraiya joined up with Naruto, and the two walked off together, discussing something between the two of them. Looking down at the Uchiha, Might Guy frowned to himself, clearly a sign that the man was in distress over something. Little Naruto-kun seemed so full of the spirit of youth before when I saw him those few times. Now? It's different. I'm sure Hokage-sama would like to hear of this. Nodding in agreement with their bushy-browed friend, the three Jonin scooped up Sasuke and began their trek back to Konoha. Early the next day, in Konoha, the entire village had gathered around the base of the Hokage Tower, everyone murmuring to one another as they tried to figure out what was going on. They had all been summoned for some kind of speech the Hokage was preparing to give, and rumors abound about the purpose of the upcoming speech. One such grouping consisted of the remaining rookie genin, and Chunin Shikamaru and Nara, that stood together, discussing the possibilities. Ino, being the gossip that she is, decided to confront the only Chunin of the group with questions. Shika, I bet you know something, don't you? You're the only one of us besides Naruto that was made Chunin, and we haven't seen a loudmouth in over a week. So fess up. What's going on? Shikamaru sighed and shook his head before looking Ino in the eyes with his usual lazy look. Not really, Ino. Just because I'm a Chunin doesn't mean that I'm made aware of every juicy detail about everything that takes place in the village. Geez, this is just too damn troublesome. First Naruto disappears without telling us anything, then Kakashi gets injured, and now this crap. It all just screams the word troublesome to me. Sakura sighed and smacked the Nara in the back of the head. Everything's troublesome to you, Shikamaru. Naruto disappearing probably has nothing at all to do with the Hokage's speech, so why even bring that up? Kakashi getting injured is far more important than that idiot. At the look she was given in response to her statement, Sakura blinked a few times and shrugged her shoulders. What? It's true. Shino shook his head in disappointment, refusing to even speak to her. Instead, he looked over at his teammate, Hinata, as she stared hatefully at the pinkette. It was unusual for the Hyuga girl to ever show anyone even that small level of malice, but what Sakura had just said had at least warranted this much from the normally timid, shy girl. Stepping back so Hinata could step by, he nodded at her and patted her reassuringly on the back. You say that now? Even after all Naruto-kun has done for you? Just recently, he risked his life to save you. You were even told that he defeated Jigara and managed to rescue you. So WWY. Why do you still badmouth him like that? Hinata shouted at Sakura, clearly furious with her for daring to speak bad about the boy she so dearly loved. The entire situation was infuriating, and Hinata couldn't take much more of Sakura's horrid behavior. Ino found herself shaking her head in disappointment of her best friend. I can't believe you'd say that about your own teammate Forehead. Yeah, he may not be the coolest guy around, but after saving you, one would think you'd at least give him a little credit. Naruto's not the same weakling we once thought he was, remember? At this, many of the others nodded their heads, completely agreeing with that sentiment. More of them went to speak, but all eyes suddenly turned up above as the Sandaime Hokage finally made his appearance. Looking down at his village and the many villagers below him, the old man sighed heavily and shook his head. Speaking loud enough for everyone to hear him, the Hokage began to give his speech. Many of you may be wondering why I called you all here today. Seeing many of the villagers below nod, the Hokage smirked knowingly to himself. Many of you might think it has to do with one of our Jonin being attacked and placed in a coma. Or perhaps you might think it has to do with the recent invasion attempt by Orochimaru. I want to tell you that my speech today has nothing to do with any of these things. Noting their confusion, The Sandaime chose to continue before anyone could interrupt him. I have called you all here today to talk about one Naruto Uzumaki. This talented young man is someone many of you seem to hate, and without good reason. Many of you choose to hate him without even knowing why. You simply choose to follow in the ways of your predecessors, your family, and your friends. I am here to tell you that you are foolish for doing so. At the angry uproar below him, the Sandaime shook his head and demanded silence from the masses. Once everyone had gone quiet, he continued his speech. Let me explain a little about Naruto before you say any more hurtful words about him. Many of the younger villagers here do not know this, and it was meant to remain an S-rank secret. Sadly, somebody spread the knowledge the very night poor Naruto was born about what he carries inside of him. Sighing at what he was about to say, Hiruzen understood that it was knowledge that must be spread in order for the masses to understand Naruto for who and what he truly is. You see, Naruto Uzumaki was made into a Jinchuriki the very night he was born. For those of you wondering what this means, the answer is quite simple. The Kyuubi wasn't killed on the night of October 10th those many years ago. One cannot simply kill a tailed beast. Instead, the Yondaime was forced to seal the Kyuubi into a young boy. I see the knowing looks on many of your faces. Yes, the Kyuubi was sealed inside one Naruto Uzumaki on the very night he was born. Hearing the ever-familiar cries of how Naruto was the demon incarnate, Hiruzen shook his head and released a wave of Ki, killing intent, to silence the masses once again. Not letting up, he continued to speak, effectively making sure all could hear him. Some of you may believe this makes him the very demon itself. This is not so. Your violent actions towards him in the past were unfounded, unjustified, and all those who chose to torment that poor boy simply for housing the Kyuubi deserve to be killed where you stand. But that is not what Naruto would want. Sighing heavily, Hiruzen lightened his Ki somewhat and continued to speak, a solemn tone in his voice now. Naruto never once retaliated against those that hurt him. The beast never took over. He hasn't harmed anyone aside from those he met on missions, or in the recent Chunin exams, or even the Jinchuriki known as Gaara. In those battles he has fought to prove himself, to protect a client, and even to protect the village and those he cares for. Or cared for. The last few words were muttered under his breath, not even loud enough for those close to him to hear. Shaking his head of the thoughts that started to plague his mind, the elderly Sarutobi continued his speech. You see, Jinchuriki are treated similarly throughout the nations. They're treated as weapons, as tools of war in some places. In others, such as here within this very village, Jinchuriki are treated as monsters not worth even a grain of salt. Naruto has had it so hard, and this is not at all what the Yondaime wished for when he sealed the beast inside of the poor boy. The Yondaime wished for Naruto to be viewed as a hero. For without Naruto, the beast could very well have killed us all, have destroyed our entire village. Without Naruto, the beast would still roam free. Naruto is the only thing that is stopping the Kyuubi from escaping and unleashing its power on the world once again. Naruto has proven himself a hero, and you monsters can't even treat him as such. Seeing the pain on their Hokage's face and hearing the words he spoke, many of the villagers below practically sunk into themselves. Their posture changed and many looked like wounded pups. Those who were close to Naruto, who knew him personally, such as his fellow Genin and Chunin Shikamaru, looked as if they were currently trying to wrap their heads around everything they had just been told. They weren't given much time to think, however, as the Hokage looked as if he was about to speak again. Looking closer, they could see tears rolling down the elderly man's face. Wiping his tears, the old Hokage took a few breaths and resumed his speech. I am ashamed of what this village has become. I am ashamed that its people could prove to be so cruel and so hateful towards one so undeserving of it all. But more than that, I'm ashamed of myself for not doing anything to stop it. I just let it happen when I could have done so much more for Naruto Uzumaki. Shaking his head again, the Hokage stared hard at his villagers until a small smirk played at his lips. You all thought Naruto's parents had abandoned him at birth. Or even that he never had any. Regardless of what you thought, Naruto Uzumaki had wonderful parents. And many of you knew them. Or at least of them. In fact, you all should know of his father. Look to the monument behind me and I shall tell you who Naruto Uzumaki's parents are. Seeing the villagers do as they were told, Hiruzen smirked wider and glanced over at the head of the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto's father is Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage himself. His mother is Kushina Uzumaki. The two of them loved their son very much and were very much looking forward to meeting him. They could have led a wonderful life together had fate not taken such a tragic turn that day. Hearing the gasps and denials of the people below, Hiruzen focused his gaze on them once more. You may want to deny this and say that I'm feeding you a tale full of lies, but I assure you that this is the truth of things. Naruto took the surname of his mother. We hid his heritage from the people to protect him. Instead, I feel I should have been a bit more honest far earlier on so that he could have been protected from you. You've spat on the wishes of his father, of the Yondaime Hokage you all loved so much. If his parents could see what has become of this very village, and what you have done to their beloved son, I am certain the two of them would be so very, very disappointed in all of you. Clenching the railing before him angrily, the Hokage's knuckles began to turn white after a time. For a moment, he clenched his teeth and fought to calm himself. After a few moments' time, Hiruzen Sarutobi began to speak once again. All Naruto Namikaze has ever wanted was to be acknowledged by someone. He has fought to earn your respect, your friendship, and your recognition. Never once did he claim to hate any of you. Naruto is truly the heir to our Yondaime, and he's the sole surviving member of the lost Uzumaki clan as well. You should be thanking him for being here, for being so kind to all of you. When Naruto returns from his mission, I hope you apologize to him. I hope he can find it in his heart to forgive you for your crimes against him. Hokage-sama. Since this concerns Naruto, why isn't he here? What mission could be so important that he couldn't be here for this? The question was asked by one Choji Akimichi, but it was a question many were now wondering. Truly, what mission could warrant taking their favorite blonde knucklehead out of the village for an important time such as this? Hiruzen, expecting this question, but hoping it wouldn't be asked, found himself sighing. Shaking his head, the elderly man answered in his normal, calm tone of voice. Naruto went on a mission with Jiraiya of the Sannin just yesterday. I asked that Jiraiya find Tsunade Senju, another of my pupils. I'm hoping that the two of them can convince her to return to Konoha to become your new Hokage. I'm old and I'm tired. But this actually brings me to something else that might prove valuable for you to know. Nodding his head at this, Hiruzen stared calmly at the masses below, and found himself smiling. Jiraiya and Tsunade of the Sannin are Naruto Namikaze's godparents. Yes, such legendary figures as my students are Naruto's godparents. When they return to Konoha, you might want to be careful. I doubt they'll be as kind as I've been should you choose to treat their godson like shit. Chuckling softly to himself, the old man turned his back to the people below. I'm done. Make of this what you will. If you have any more questions, I'll answer what I can. Just be smart about what you say. I truly am tired of it all. Stepping back inside, the Hokage took a seat at his desk and lit his pipe. All I can do now is wait and see what happens with Naruto-kun returns. I hope you can forgive me for my inaction, Naruto. A few hours later, Shikamaru Nara and the rest of the rookies, excluding one Sakura Haruno, had decided to meet with each other at the Akimichi's barbecue joint to discuss everything they had just heard. Of course, naturally, they had tried to invite Sakura, but she wanted nothing to do with it. Apparently the Pinkette refused to believe that Naruto could be related to the Yondaime, and stormed off. They all pretty much expected that to happen, but it was still troublesome nonetheless. Unexpectedly, at least to the rookies, was the fact that most of their parents had decided to come to the meeting as well, along with some of their other family members. Those that chose to join the group were Tsum and Hana Inuzuka, Hayashi and Hanabi Hyuga, Inoichi Yamanaka, Choza Akimichi, and Shikaka Nara. The simple fact that they chose to be there meant they wanted to discuss this topic not only amongst themselves, but with their friends and family as well. Releasing a heavy sigh, Shikamaru leaned back in his seat and stared up at the ceiling as they waited for their food. Choza had the other Akimichis working on it so he could be here for the conversation. So troublesome. I could have ventured a guess as to who his father was based on his looks alone, but this confirms it. Shrugging, the Nara boy looked to his father and cracked a small smile. I assume you adults already knew everything already? Shikaku shook his head and groaned. Some of us certainly had our suspicions, but Hokage-sama's announcement yesterday night at the meeting finally confirmed it for us. It's definitely troublesome, knowing Namikaze's son suffered while we did nothing for him. Regardless of that fact, there's not a damn thing that we can do to change the past. What matters from this point is what we do to make it up to the boy. Ino frowned at this and looked to her father for a moment before she glanced around at all the others. But what can we do? I wouldn't be surprised if Naruto hates us. Choza reached over and patted the girl on her shoulders. No worries there, little one. Naruto secluded himself from everyone for the past week, as Hokage-sama told us during the meeting, but I think the lad's just trying to sort things out right now. It must have been pretty surprising to find out that his father's the Yondaime after all. But I worry for the Namikaze boy. I don't think he hates any of you, but the village? That's another question. As their food was delivered to them, Shino glanced at his food for a moment before he decided to speak up and voice his opinion. Try to think of things from Naruto's point of view for a moment. Seeing the others looking his way, the Aburame picked up his chopsticks and poked at his food for a moment before continuing. Hokage-sama knew this information all along. To Naruto, who never truly had a family and who was treated so harshly by the villagers, wouldn't this feel like a devastating blow? To Naruto, wouldn't he feel as if he's been lied to by one of the people he trusted wholeheartedly? Hana nodded her head, a solemn expression taking hold of her features. You have a point, Shino-san. If I was in Naruto's shoes, I'd have a hard time forgiving Hokage-sama for that. In fact, I think I'd feel incredibly betrayed and hurt inside. Who knows what he's been up to during his time of seclusion? Do you think he moved into his parents' old home? Shikamaru nodded at this and began to dig into his food for a time before he finally spoke up. No doubt about it. If Naruto did, it would explain why we haven't seen hide nor hair of him since he became a Chunin. I was there in the room when Hokage-sama announced we had both made Chunin, and I remember Naruto being told to remain behind so that he could speak to him. So he must have been informed then and gone straight there. You definitely raise a good point, Hana. There's no telling what Naruto's been up to during that time of seclusion. Troublesome. Ino sighed at that and dabbed at her mouth with a cloth before speaking. Stop saying that all the time, Shika. I'm just really worried about him. I know it may be selfish of me to say this seeing as Naruto and I aren't really the best of friends. Boy, that's an understatement, she muttered under her breath, seeing similar looks from everyone around her. Sighing, she continued with her statement. Point is, I don't want Naruto to change. Hinata spoke up at this point, having remained quiet this entire time so far. I feel the same way. And Naruto-kun's fine the way he is. He's kind, passionate, believes in himself, doesn't let others bring him down. He's an incredible person. I can only imagine how much he's hurting inside right now. This village has hurt him so much. What if Naruto-kun decides to leave because he can't stand being here anymore? The one person he trusted more than anybody turned out to have been lying to him all along. Hanabi looked at her sister at this point. Hinata looked absolutely heartbroken at this thought, and so she found herself reaching over and gently squeezing Hinata's hand. With how hard he fought Niji-san, I hope he doesn't decide to leave. Hokage-sama did say that Naruto-san has been fighting hard to get people to acknowledge him, right? Wouldn't leaving just ruin that for him? Hayashi slowly nodded his head, but kept his eyes closed as he ate his food in silence for a time. He listened as the others around him made conversation. The one he was most concerned about at this moment was his daughter, Hinata. The leader of the Hyuga clan clearly knew of her feelings for the boy, and while he didn't approve of them at first, Naruto had proven to be an incredible shinobi thus far. His actions during the Chunin exams and the influence he had on Hinata were clearly astounding. Upon finishing his meal, the Hyuga clan head looked around at everyone before clearing his throat to signify that he would like to speak. I may not have always approved of the boy, but Naruto's proven himself a trustworthy individual. If he does choose to leave the village, I, for one, will not hold it against him. I know some here would probably even follow him. At this, Hayashi shot a knowing look at his daughter and smiled softly at her before continuing on. I'll be honest here, this village has changed over the years. Hokage-sama's disbanding of the civilian side of the council was perhaps one of the better decisions he has made in years. They were a corrupt group of individuals involved in shady dealings, and a number of the attacks made against the young Namake's boy. The elders, Danzo Shimura included, are a concern as well, but that is either here nor there. What does concern me is what Naruto's plans are now that he's learned the truth. The only thing truly tying him to Konoha now is his parents, and the home they left for him. To be honest, I doubt that is a strong enough tie to keep him here in the village. Some shook her head and sighed at this. It's frustrating to think that way, but I agree with you, Hayashi. I'll say it now, if the boy decides to leave Konoha, I plan on going with him. And if and when that happens, I'm hoping my children and clan mates come with me. The boy deserves better than what we've given him, and I want to look out for the pup from now on. He deserves to feel as if he's part of a family after all he's had to put up with. Inoichi closed his eyes upon finishing his meal and had so far listened to everything the others had said. Sighing after hearing what some said, he opened one of his eyes and glanced her way. You won't be the only ones leaving with him. Think about it. Hokage-sama informed us that Jiraiya and Tsunade of the Sannin are his godparents. If Naruto were to abandon the village, it wouldn't surprise me if they chose to do so as well. Losing Jiraiya and his spy network would be a problem, but if Tsunade were to go with them and never return, we'd lose valuable medical expertise that our medics could greatly benefit from. Naruto leaving would turn out to be a truly horrible thing for our village, I'm certain of it. The others could only nod their heads in agreement with that line of thinking. Ino lowered her head, placing her chopsticks down on the table now that she had finished eating. I feel bad for how I've treated him. Like really bad. When he comes back, if he really doesn't hate us yet, I hope I can be a better friend to the knucklehead. He deserves at least that much. For a good while, the friends and family members ate together and chatted with one another. Their conversation topic remained focused on one person almost the entire time, Naruto Namikaze. Many of them clearly wished the best for the boy, but there was one person eavesdropping on them that clearly didn't agree with any of them. The pinkette turned away and stormed out of the restaurant, an angry scowl on her face. I don't care if the idiot saved me, that doesn't prove anything. Son of the Yondaime? A hero? I'm not buying it. When he comes back, I'm going to give that idiot a piece of my mind for trying to lie to everyone like this. Elsewhere, Tanzaka quarters. As Jiraiya and Naruto walked into the town, they both let out a heavy sigh and fist bumped each other. We are finally here. Chuckling together, the godfather/godson duo smirked and instantly found themselves agreeing on their first destination. We're getting a room at an inn before we look for her. As they began the trek to their first destination, Naruto felt a familiar tug in the back of his mind. Opening up the link again, he began speaking to the Kyuubi while keeping track of where he and Jiraiya were headed. What's up, Kyuubi? Something troubling you? Kyuubi let out a long, frustrated sigh before she finally spoke. It's nice you two are getting along and all, but don't forget he did abandon you for some time. Sure, the perv's teaching you some things now, and yes, he's treating you with a bit of respect. Still, do you really think it's okay to just forgive him for his neglect up until now? Frowning slightly at the Kyuubi's words, Naruto followed Jiraiya into a pretty fancy-looking inn and decided on his words carefully before responding. I understand and thank you for your concern, Kyuubi, but Jiraiya's not the one I truly have a problem with. The Sandaime Hokage is the one that lied to me all my life and let me suffer all that abuse. If the old bastard had actually done something, maybe I wouldn't have led such a shitty life. Jiraiya's okay, surprisingly. Besides, I know you, Kyuubi. You're not worried about Pervy-sensei. What's really on your mind? Kyuubi chuckled at that and shook her head, the image clear for Naruto to see if he focused enough. You're right there. I just want you to be careful of one thing, Naruto. Don't let him rub off on you too much. I don't want you turning into a huge pervert that peeps on women while they're bathing. Naruto and Kyuubi shared a laugh at that before the nine-tailed demon fox continued on. What I'm concerned about is what you'll do when you see Tsunade. After all, you heard what Jiraiya told you. About why she left the village, her history, etc. Well, there's one thing he forgot to say. He didn't mention if she knows she's your godmother or not. So, while you may assume she is, be careful and don't let her words rile you up, alright? You may be here to convince her to return to Konoha with you, but it's more personal for you and you know it. So be careful, okay? Naruto let out an audible sigh, catching Jiraiya's attention. Slowly raising his hand, Naruto smirked up at him. Don't worry, just having a conversation with Kyuubi-chan. I told you already that we talk. So what would you have me do, Kyuubi? If she pisses me off, and it's likely to happen based on what Jiraiya-sensei's told us about her so far, then I can't really guarantee I'll manage to keep my cool. Still, for you, I'll try my best. Still though, keep in mind, no guarantees. All I can ask is that you try. Who knows? If all goes well, she might even be one of those willing to help you pay Konoha back for all their crap. Well, if you decide to take it that far. I know you're still planning to take a wait-and-see attitude on this after all. Laughing softly, the Kyuubi cut the link so Naruto could focus on searching for Tsunade with Jiraiya. After placing their things in their room, Naruto turned to Jiraiya and shook his head. Don't ask. Kyuubi's just concerned about me. Wants me to be careful. Now, as much as I'd like to rest, it might be prudent of us to find Tsunade and speak with her before we get any rest. Groaning, Naruto rubbed his shoulders and hung his head. After that fight and then walking all night, I have to admit that I'm pretty damn sore. Thanks for sticking with the Fuinjutsu, sealing techniques, lessons instead of anything too physically taxing, Jiraiya-sensei. I appreciate it. Nodding his head at his godson, Jiraiya reached over and patted the boy atop his head. No problem, Naruto. I must admit though, you're picking up on Fuinjutsu far quicker than I expected you to. Then again, you are an Uzumaki, so it shouldn't be too surprising, I suppose. Regardless, you have a point. We should find Tsunade before she decides to skip town on us. Might as well go have a look around then. Shrugging, the two left the inn and went off in search of the blonde Sannin. Later in the afternoon, around 3 p.m. Naruto and Jiraiya were grumbling as they entered yet another bar. It was one of the few places they hadn't checked yet, and the two of them were honestly tired. They hadn't been able to rest for far too long now, and they had spent almost the entire day since arriving in Tanzaka searching for the bloody Sannin. I swear if she isn't in here, I'm heading to the inn and taking a nap. I'm struggling just to keep my eyes open, Jiraiya. Jiraiya nodded and reached up to rub at his eyes. When he went to respond, the man let out a loud yawn and let his hands droop at his sides. Ugh. I'm feeling so sluggish here, kid. I'm with you. If we can't find Tsunade here, let's go back and sleep. All we can do is hope that she'll still be here tomorrow and that she'll be easier to find. As it stands, I'm starting to regret not resting at the damn inn when we first got here. Cammy knows we needed the rest then, and we definitely do now. Taking the seat offered them by their waitress, the two looked at one another for a moment before they looked over their menus. However, as they were about to decide on what to order, the two soon heard the voice of the exact person they were looking for. Naruto didn't recognize it at first, namely because he hadn't heard her voice before, but Jiraiya did, and the Toad Sage found himself smirking. Bingo! It looks like we finally found her, Naruto. Come on! Motioning for Naruto to stand and follow him, Jiraiya stepped through the place until he spotted her. Kami, she still looks beautiful even now. Chuckling at his thoughts, the Sannin walked over and took a seat across from her without ever speaking a word to her. When she turned to face him, clearly ready to tell him to buzz off, the sage found himself smirking as he winked at her. Long time no see, Tsunade-heim. I hope you've been well? Tsunade let her head hit the table and groaned loudly. Ugh. Waitress, I could use some more sake, damn it. Looking up, the female Sannin looked Jiraiya in the eyes before turning back to Shizen. It hasn't been nearly long enough, Jiraiya. What the hell do you want? Before Jiraiya could respond, Naruto walked over and took a seat next to the big man. So this is her, huh? I have to admit, she looks a lot younger than I expected. I figured she looked to be about your age, Ero-sennin. Chuckling to himself, Naruto soon found himself having to dodge Tsunade's attempt to grab him by the collar of his flak jacket. Smirking her way, the blonde Chunin shook his head. Struck a nerve, did I, Tsunade-chan? Don't try to grab me like that again. Narrowing his eyes at the older woman, Naruto released a sigh and shook his head before speaking again. From what I've heard of you so far, I have to wonder something. Why do you choose to gamble and drink so much? First off, drinking in excessive amounts like that won't do anything for your health. Second, gambling really won't help you work off any debts you've racked up. Instead, it will only increase the amount of debt you owe, and to the number of people you owe money to. For one of the legendary Sannin, gambling away all your money all the time really isn't that very smart. You're not doing yourself any credit. Frowning at her, Naruto found himself avoiding another attack, this time a punch aimed at his head. Sighing, Naruto chuckled to himself before looking up at Jiraiya. You're right, Jiraiya-sensei, she does have a violent temper. All I had to do was speak the truth and she flew off the handle. The older man sighed and shook his head as he stared down at the whiskered, blonde Chunin beside him. True, but you didn't have to provoke her like that. I thought you wanted to get to know her, Naruto. Not piss her off. Remember our mission. Seeing his godson nod in response, Jiraiya turned to his longtime friend and offered her a placating smile. Calm yourself, Tsunade-heim, and let's talk for a bit. For old time's sake, will you just hear me out? Tsunade sighed as she thought it over. Shooting a look at the blonde brat before her and then at Shizen and Taunton, the blonde Sannin frowned and nodded her head. Fine, but any food you order's on you. I'm not going to pay for the crap you two choose to eat here. Jiraiya chuckled and nodded his head in response, a gleeful grin on his face. Sounds like a fair deal to me. That actually makes this easier than I thought it was going to be. You see, Tsunade, the Gaki and I were sent on a mission to find you. I assume by now you must have heard about what happened in Konoha recently, correct? Tsunade shrugged her shoulders and took a sip of her freshly poured sake, clearly not happy with this situation. I've heard some, but I'd rather hear it straight from the horse's mouth. What exactly happened this time, Jiraiya? The white-haired Sannin chuckled and leaned back, picking up his own cup of sake and bringing it to his lips. Upon draining the cup of its contents, he placed it back upon the table and motioned for Tsunade to pour him another cup. Orochimaru happened, that's what. The bastard had a whole invasion planned. First he plants that damn curse mark of his on Sasuke Uchiha during the second stage of the Chunin exams, and then he unleashes his army on Konoha during the third stage. Orochimaru tricked Suna into joining the invasion on his side by taking the place of their Kazekage. So, with the combined forces of Suna and Oto, things got pretty rough for Konoha. It didn't help matters any that the Ichibi Jinchuriki was unleashed during the chaos as well. Tsunade's eyes widened for a moment before she poured both Jiraiya and herself another 2 cups of sake. Downing both of hers, the blonde-haired woman shook her head and released a heavy sigh. Damn. I didn't think he'd take things quite that far. Konoha's fine, I take it? How about the old man? And who the hell stopped the Ichibi Jinchuriki? You. Jiraiya chuckled at that and patted Naruto on the head. To answer your questions in order, Konoha's fine. A little shaken up after the invasion, and they're still in the process of repairing the damage, but they'll be fine. The old man survived the ordeal, but due to some of his recent actions, he and I aren't on the best of terms right now. And finally, the one to stop the Ichibi Jinchuriki was this guy right here, Naruto Uzumaki. Smirking at his longtime friend and crush's current expression, Jiraiya shook his head at her. No, I'm not lying. He put up quite the fight and defeated the Ichibi Jinchuriki, even after the beast was allowed to take over. Pretty impressive, wouldn't you agree, Tsunade? Naruto shrugged his shoulders at that before looking up into Jiraiya's face. I wouldn't have been able to pull it off if you hadn't trained me for that month. Your training helped a great deal, as did your teaching me how to summon the toads. Gamabunta was a big help. At that, Tsunade's eyes widened a great deal before she downed another 3 cups of sake. You're telling me this little gaki managed to summon Gamabunta of all things? He looks like he'd barely be able to summon a tadpole for Kami's sake. You have to be pulling my leg here, Tsunade finally said after a moment's thought. At the expressions on their faces, she sighed heavily and lowered her head again. Ugh, okay. Maybe you're not. That's pretty impressive for a gaki your size. When it looked like Naruto was about to say something in response to her insulting words, Jiraiya quickly patted his shoulder and gave Naruto a look that said, "Let me do the talking." Nodding reluctantly, Naruto went to eating the food he had ordered a short time ago while Jiraiya resumed the discussion. Tsunade, let me get to the reason we came to find you. It's time for you to return to Konoha. Tsunade grumbled and nodded her head. I already figured that much based on what you said earlier. The answer's no. If that's all you wanted to say, then buzz off and leave me to drink in peace, she replied grumpily, clearly not even willing to humor the idea of returning to Konoha with him. Jiraiya sighed and shook his head before downing another cup of sake. It's not that simple. The old man would like you to replace him as Hokage, Tsunade. It would also be prudent if we could convince you to train the medics. But aside from that, there are patients that they need your help with. Kakashi Hatake and Sasuke Uchiha are just a few that need your attention. Tsunade released a loud laugh at this before shaking her head in disbelief. Me? Become Hokage? No thank you. And I can't do anything to help rid the Uchiha brat of Orochimaru's seal, you know that. I'm not a Fuinjutsu master like you, Jiraiya. Laughing to herself, Tsunade poured herself another cup of sake. Jiraiya sighed and rubbed at his temple. They were attacked by Itachi Uchiha. Something he did has put the two of them into some kind of coma. They aren't waking up. To be honest, Naruto here was Itachi's intended target. He and his partner in crime wanted to capture him. Tsunade raised an eyebrow at that and glanced at the blonde-haired Uzumaki boy. Interesting. Now why would they want to do such a thing, I wonder? Smirking to herself, Tsunade had a basic idea, but she wanted to hear it directly from the men before her. Naruto scoffed at this and shook his head. Don't give me that crap. You've an idea, so don't play dumb. But since you want to hear it from me, I might as well tell you. Leaning forward, the blonde Jinchuriki smirked at Tsunade. Yes, I'm the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Yes, they wanted me for that reason. They made that perfectly clear. I don't know exactly what Itachi and Fish Breath want with the Kyuubi and me, but does it matter? They ran away after Jiraiya-sensei came to the rescue. I doubt I'll be seeing them again anytime soon. With a shrug of his shoulders, Naruto took a sip of his tea that he had ordered a short while ago before he went about finishing his meal. Jiraiya nodded his head at that before he spoke his thoughts on the matter. I've been looking into the group those two are a part of for a while now. They're seeking Jinchuriki for some purpose, but that's not exactly clear just yet. The Akatsuki, as they're called, aren't too active yet, and I only know the identities of a few of their members. Itachi Uchiha, Kisame Hashigaki, and a man named Deidara from Iwagakure. They're a pretty secretive group, and it's hard to get any information on them. I can't even get a good grasp on the size of their organization. Shaking his head, Jiraiya ruffled his hair a bit before he decided to get back on the main reason for their visit. Tsunade, that's beside the point right now. As much as I can't stand that old monkey right now, you need to come back with us. What can I do to convince you to return with us? Tsunade practically snarled as she turned on her old friend. Nothing. Now drop it, Jiraiya. If you don't have anything else to talk about, then get lost and leave me to my drink. I'm done talking to you. When the blonde boy scoffed, Tsunade turned on him and narrowed her eyes. And what the hell's your problem? Naruto dabbed at his lips with a cloth before focusing his gaze on her. The coldness in his gaze caught the older woman off guard. My problem? Let's start with you. So bad shit happened in your past? So what? You're just running away from your problems and wallowing in self-pity and a pool of misery. It's pathetic. You even left your own godson to rot in that hellish village known as Konoha. You want to know what the villagers did to your precious godson that you abandoned, Tsunade? TCH, I bet you probably don't even give a shit, but guess what, you cranky old bitch. I'm going to tell you anyways. Slamming his fist down on the table, Naruto pointed a finger in the woman's face. Your godson was put through hell, that's what happened. For something that wasn't even his fault, he was harassed and beaten by the villagers for so damn long. One of the people he was closest to turned out to be nothing but a lying bastard recently, and can no longer be trusted. Your godson doesn't have any true friends. He had to struggle just to become a fucking shinobi. He doesn't get any damn respect. But has he quit yet? Has he decided to just run away from his problems? Nope. Your godson is toughing it out and making plans to make things better for himself. Scoffing again, Naruto rose and began walking away. Go ahead and pity yourself, you cranky old bitch. TCH, it was a total waste of time coming here. Turns out you're worse than I imagined. Leaving the bar/restaurant, Naruto decided to wait outside until Jiraiya was finished so they could discuss what to do next. Meanwhile, inside, Tsunade sat with a dumbfounded expression upon her face. Slowly turning to Jiraiya, she found herself struggling in an attempt to find the words. When she finally found her voice, the Sannin voiced her thoughts. Jiraiya, what the hell did that little brat mean? Since when was I named somebody's godmother of all things? How long ago did something like that happen? And just fuck it. What the hell is going on, Jiraiya? Frowning at his godson's behavior, Jiraiya found himself trying to reel in his emotions. Rubbing the bridge of his nose in frustration, the male Sannin took some time to think on how to explain everything to Tsunade. After a time, the soft-hearted man took in a deep breath and exhaled it slowly. Tsunadeheim. It may sound a bit unbelievable, but Minato and Kushina named you the godmother of their child before they passed away. I'm the boy's godfather. I left him in the care of the old man, but it turns out that was a mistake. Not only did he fail to protect the boy, he lied to him his entire life. That old bastard didn't even tell Naruto who his parents were until just a week ago. Downing another cup of sake, Jiraiya groaned and threw his head back, staring blankly at the ceiling. I'm no better. I didn't stay in the village. I didn't protect the Gaki. Kami knows I should have done more for him, but I only entered his life recently. It's amazing our godson is even giving me the chance he is. Especially after what he's learned. Shaking his head, Jiraiya found himself chuckling dryly, a bitter taste in his mouth. How do you think it felt to learn that somebody he looked up to so dearly, the Sandaime Hokage, was lying to him all his life? Was the very reason he couldn't even be adopted of all things. Boy, did we really screw the poor Gaki over good. Frowning deeply, Jiraiya closed his eyes and rested his face in his hands. That boy that just stormed out? That's our godson Tsunade. He's been through hell in that village. Konoha has changed so much. It's just not the same anymore, Tsunade. It's just not the same. A few tears trickled down the old Sannin's cheeks before he shook his head and began to laugh. It's just a damn nightmare of a place. Naruto still goes through hell in that village, and he still stays there. But he's changed, Tsunade. Before he was such an energetic boy and was full of smiles and laughter. But learning the truth really hurt him. The poor Gaki's in a dark place right now, and he needs our help. At least take the time to get to know him properly. Come back to Konoha with us, Tsunade. Kami knows he could use someone like you in his life. Shaking her head in disbelief, Tsunade rose and followed after Naruto, heading out into the streets to look for him. She was soon followed by Shizen, Taunton, and Jiraiya, whom was forced to place money down for the entirety of the bill before he followed. Naruto had his back turned to them so they couldn't see his expression. After a moment, Tsunade decided to speak. If you're really my godson, then before I say anything else, I'd like you to apologize to me, Naruto. Naruto found himself chuckling at that. Still refusing to turn to her, the blonde Jinchuriki threw his hands behind his head and stared up at the sky. An apology for speaking the truth. Yeah, that's original. What the hell do you want now, Tsunade? If you've changed your mind and decided to return to Konoha with us, then just say so. Otherwise leave me the hell alone. Grumbling at his blatant disrespect towards his own godmother, Tsunade began stepping towards him. Damn it, brat, stop being such a pain in the ass already. I already told you I'm not going to return to that damn village. Before she could continue, Naruto turned slightly so he could look at her out of the corner of his eye. Then we've nothing to talk about. I'm sure we can find somebody else to be Hokage. As for getting Kakashi and Sasuke healed, I'm not even sure if I really give a damn, to be honest with you. Kakashi favored that damn Uchiha team, and the team? TCH. I don't really need to say anything. His arrogance speaks for him. Chuckling darkly to himself, Naruto turned to face her and smirked. So Tsunade, go ahead and continue running up your debts. Keep drowning yourself in the drink and stumble through life like the pathetic bitch you are. Turning his gaze to Jiraiya, Naruto shrugged his shoulders. I'm going back to the inn to get some sleep. You're free to try and talk sense into her, I don't really care. When Naruto turned around and began to walk away, Tsunade stomped towards him and went to punch him in the back of the head for being such a punk. She was shocked, however, when the Naruto before her exploded in a cloud of smoke. Blinking a few times, it was only then that she felt a kunai pressed against her back. A cold sweat ran down the back of her neck when she felt somebody's breath on her ear. Glancing quickly towards her assailant, she saw the same blonde-haired runt standing behind her. TSK, Tsunade. Did you really think I'd leave myself open like that? I left a shadow clone and kept myself in a henge transformation, while I waited for you to follow me. Riling you up was just a tad too easy, don't you think? Smirking to himself, Naruto pressed the kunai against her a little harder before he continued. If I was an enemy shinobi, I could have killed you already. Now, explain to me why I should apologize to you exactly? When Naruto slipped away his kunai and allowed her to turn around to face him, Tsunade found herself frowning at him before folding her arms over her bust. You're not really what I expected, Naruto. I didn't know I even had a godson until Jiraiya told me. To be honest, I never once thought I had anything left for me in Konoha. I still don't. From the sounds of it, you hate it just as much as I do. But sighing, she shook her head and pointed her finger at him. You still shouldn't be so rude to your godmother Gaki. That's why I think you should apologize. You don't know all the details about what led me to be like this. Nor do I know all the details about what's happened to you. So, as your godmother, I'd like you to apologize. Still, I suppose it would be best to lead by example now, wouldn't it? Bowing her head, Tsunade sighed heavily before she spoke again. I'm sorry, Naruto, for not being there for you. Naruto chuckled at that and shook his head. You're not the only one. But there's really nothing for you to apologize for. I figured you didn't know. Still, you have to understand my frustrations. Being lied to all my life, finding out that the villagers practically spat on my father's wishes, and having to deal with all this other crap that's going on. It's a little much, don't you think? Smirking at her, Naruto reached out a hand and gave her a quick handshake. I'm sorry as well for how I've treated you. I'll forgive you for now. I'm really tired right now though, so I'm going to head back and get some rest. Hopefully we can talk more later and get to know each other better. I'll see you back at the inn, Jiraiya-sensei. Waving goodbye to his godparents and Shizen, Naruto walked off. Placing a hand upon the woman's shoulder, Jiraiya shook his head. Tsunade, I think you'd be pretty damn proud of everything he's accomplished so far. He's fought so hard for it all. Still, he needs our help. With a shrug, he moved to walk past her, only to lean in close and whisper quietly in her ear. As for the deal Orochimaru made you, I hope you aren't even considering accepting it. You can't trust anything that snake says. Tsunade's eyes widened and she looked into Jiraiya's eyes. How did you? How did I know? Naruto-kun and I figured it out after seeing the destruction earlier. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that Orochimaru came here to see you. I don't know what he offered you, and to be honest, I don't care. I hope meeting Naruto will sway you to our side, but in the end the decision is up to you. We'll wait for your answer, Tsunade. With that, he stepped past her and waved over his shoulder. Good night, Tsunadeheim. Sleep well. Tsunade fell to her knees and began to chuckle somewhat nervously. That clever bastard. Shaking her head, the Sannin found herself laughing at her misfortune. My luck has to be the worst in the world. What did I do to get on Kami's bad side like this, I wonder? With Shizen's help, Tsunade stood up and walked off with her to hopefully get some sleep in their room. The rest of this week is going to be terrible. I can see it now. Later that week, Shizen was pounding hard on the door to Naruto's and Jiraiya's room. When Naruto opened it, she looked around quickly and shook her head. Naruto-kun? Where's Jiraiya? Wasn't he supposed to be with you? Naruto shrugged and let her into the room. Jiraiya didn't return last night. I figured he went to speak with Tsunade, but frowning, the blonde sat upon his bed and began to tap his fingers on his knee. Why are you so panicked, Shizen-chan? Something's clearly bothering you. Tsunade went on her own to meet with Orochimaru. She knocked me out and when I awoke, she was gone. Naruto-kun, we need to find her and stop her from doing something stupid. The Namikaze found himself chuckling at that. Wow, so she really is crazy. Shaking his head, Naruto rose and prepared his things. I doubt she's going to accept Orochimaru's deal so readily. If anything, she's probably just trying to take care of the pedo snake on her own. Pretty stupid if you asked me. Walking to the window, Naruto threw it open and stepped out. Jiraiya-sensei, I assume you heard all that? Are you good to go? Jiraiya chuckled dryly, his throat feeling as if it was burning. Just as soon as Shizen gives me something to help counteract this damn drug. I have to admit, I didn't expect Tsunade to pull a fast one on me like that. Looking at the black-haired young woman as she stepped out to join them, Taunton in her arms, Jiraiya grinned. Shizen, mind helping me out real quick? Shizen nodded quickly and went about doing whatever she could to help Jiraiya. Sighing sadly, she shook her head. The best I can do is to give you this, Jiraiya-sama. It'll take some time for the antidote to kick in, unfortunately. I'm sorry. Jiraiya smiled at her and patted her shoulder. No worries. I'm sure it'll be enough. Now come on, we need to hurry. Receiving nods in response, the three hurried off to help Tsunade deal with the snake and his cohort. Outskirts of Tanzaka quarters, moments later. Tsunade was shaking as Kabuto approached her. The young man, having performed a coward's act and using her hemophobia against her, had gained the upper hand and now intended to kill her. However, before he could, Kabuto was forced to dodge a few jutsu that could have dealt some terrible damage to him. Jumping back near his master, Orochimaru, Kabuto looked to the newcomers only to find himself smirking. "Ah, Naruto-kun. So good to see you again. You don't look all that happy to see me." Naruto sighed and shrugged his shoulders. "It doesn't matter. You were odd, but you helped my team out. I appreciate the help, but now that I see you were working with the pedo snake all along, it just means I'll have to kill you, Kabuto." Glancing over at Tsunade as Shizen rushed to tend to her, Naruto found himself shaking his head in disappointment. It figures Orochimaru's pets would use underhanded tactics to get what they want. Is that something you all share in common? An overwhelming sense of cowardice that prevents you from fighting as a true ninja should? Smirking to himself at that, Naruto took hold of one of his kunai and stared hard into Kabuto's eyes. Then again, it truly doesn't matter now, does it? For attacking Tsunade, I'm going to kick your ass. Say your farewells to the pedo snake, Kabuto, because once I'm done with you, you aren't going to be his little sex toy any longer. Kabuto found himself snarling at this for a moment before he regained his composure and reactivated his chakra scalpels. "When I was observing you before, Naruto-kun, you proved you weren't anything special. I'll prove to you now that you're just a pathetic kid trying to play at being a shinobi. When comparing you to Sasuke-kun, it's obvious who the more talented shinobi is." Seeing as how this wasn't affecting the blonde, the medic Nin shrugged his shoulders. "I see you've gained a more level head at least. Fine then. It looks like I'm going to have to show you the difference in our skills, Naruto Uzumaki. Come on then." Preparing himself for the battle to come, Kabuto took a defensive stance and waited. "I'm going to enjoy cutting you down, Naruto Uzumaki. Let's see if you can survive our little game of tag." Back in Konoha, Asuma and Kurenai sat in one of a number of restaurants, currently awaiting their food. Though, as much as they'd love to share their time together, just the two of them, they knew that they were going to have some company soon in the form of some of their friends and fellow Konoha ninja. Surprisingly, Asuma wasn't actually smoking today, nor was he even moving to light a cigarette. Instead, he simply stared at his girlfriend for a time before chuckling softly to himself. "So Naruto, huh?" Kurenai giggled softly at this and shook her head. "Yes. Who would have thought that boy would turn out to be who he is?" Looking down at her hands, folded as they were in her lap, she closed her beautiful, crimson eyes and thought about the events the recent days had brought them. All in all, it had been an insane time since the Chunin exams, and it only seemed to be getting more and more hectic in the village after the announcement made by the Sandaime Hokage a number of days ago. Asuma shrugged his shoulders and finally reached into his pouch, pulling out a nearly empty packet of cigarettes. Snagging one from it, he began fumbling around for his lighter in one of his inner shirt pockets. Placing the cigarette in his mouth and lighting it, the bearded man looked to Kurenai and grinned softly at her. "I had my suspicions, but damn if it wasn't a shock to me still." Chuckling, he shook his head for a moment, and rested his chin atop his hands, both elbows propped upon the table now. "He looks a great deal like his father after all. I'm sure if anyone actually took a close enough look, they'd have seen it too. Still, I have to admit the boy seems to take more after his mother than he does Namikaze-san." Kurenai smiled at that and nodded slowly. She didn't know Naruto's parents that well, but she knew enough to understand what Asuma meant by that statement. Before she could speak another word on the topic they were discussing, their food arrived and she nodded, offering a soft-spoken word of thanks before she went to take a bite. However, what happened next had her narrowing her eyes on one of her dearest friends, Anko Mitarashi. The snake mistress of Konoha had quickly snatched up a small bite of Kurenai's food and swallowed it before Kurenai could even offer a single word of protest. Smirking at the look on her friend's face, Anko patted the Jonin sensei on the shoulder before glancing at Asuma. "Yo. Nice to see the two lovebirds are getting along so well. The others should get here pretty soon. Looks like one of them got caught up by something, not sure what though." With a shrug, Anko went to grab another bite of Kurenai's meal, only to have her hand smacked away. Offering a small pout, Anko found herself on the end of one of Kurenai's heated glares. Sighing, the former pupil of Orochimaru took her seat next to the Genjutsu mistress and leaned back in her chair. "Have to admit, I did not expect to hear all that from the old man. That little gaki didn't seem like anything special when I first saw him. But hearing all that from the Sandaime really makes me wonder. Could that gaki really turn out to be something special after all?" Asuma shrugged his shoulders at that and simply continued to eat his meal in peace for a brief period of time. When Guy, Ginma, and Yugao stepped into the restaurant, he offered them a quick wave before turning to Anko with a smile. "Well, Naruto has proven to be a surprising person so far. Some of those pranks he used to pull were actually kind of incredible. Then there's the battle with the Inuzuka boy that caught many of us off guard. Sure, it was a little unorthodox and unhygienic, but he proved that he wasn't just some weakling." Guy chose to cut in at this point as he sat down with the others. "More than that, I'd say I'm most impressed with his most youthful attitude and outlook on life. Standing up to my student the way he did, and even defeating him in the first match of the finals was quite an astounding feat. Believing one to be incapable simply because they at first didn't show talent for something really is a most unyouthful act. Nodding, his arms folded across his chest, Guy then offered a small smirk to his fellow shinobi and kunoichi. One can prove themselves through hard work as well, as proven by my little protege, Lee. After speaking those words, however, Guy's expression changed and he found himself shaking his head. I really should have been more careful with how I taught Lee. I feel for the boy. He's a good kid, and he's proven to have a real knack for my taijutsu style. But after what happened in the preliminary rounds against that Gaara, I wonder if I did the right thing. I hope that when Tsunade returns, she can do something for Lee. I truly do. Seeing their friend so dejected, Asuma patted him on the back for a moment before offering Guy some of his food. The Jonin sensei gladly accepted, offering a warm smile to Asuma before snatching a few pieces of meat. Meanwhile, Genma took this moment to speak up and voice his thoughts. I'm sure Tsunade-sama will be able to do something for the boy. But I believe we were originally called here to discuss a few things regarding Namake's boy. Receiving a few nods in response, Genma smiled as he flicked the senbon in his mouth to the other side. I'll admit that I was shocked with what he pulled off during his match with Niji. But after everything that happened and his defeat of Gaara, I'm really not that astonished anymore. The kid's got talent, and he's already doing his parents proud, I'm certain of it. But I'm also concerned. Seeing some of the looks he received, the Tokubetsu Jonin shrugged his shoulders before glancing off into a seemingly random direction. After learning the truth from Hokage-sama, Naruto's bound to go through some changes. It must have been quite a shock to the boy, but more than that, how does he feel? What is he thinking? Genma sighed and shook his head. Resting his chin on his chest, the Tokubetsu Jonin closed his eyes and grumbled a few things before speaking again. I spoke with Hokage-sama about it. It seems before Naruto left on the mission with Jiraiya-sama, he had secluded himself away in his parents' old home. Not once did he leave, nor did he ever even try to contact Hokage-sama. It seems that the relationship the two of them once had has been strained to severe limits. Even Hokage-sama has admitted that he doesn't know what to expect from the boy anymore. Glancing around at the others, Genma found himself frowning as he once again shifted the senbon around in his mouth. When Naruto returns, I say we keep an eye on him when we can. It might be a good idea to observe his behavior and report it to Hokage-sama if anything's changed. Before he could say anything more, Genma was interrupted by Kurenai. She had her eyes narrowed at him, and she looked to be more than a little miffed about what he seemed to be suggesting. Are you trying to say that Naruto can no longer be trusted? That he might turn on the village or attempt something drastic? He's a good kid, and for your information, I trust him. Besides, Hinata has taken quite a liking to the boy, and I'd rather not think anything bad of someone that inspires some amount of confidence in her. Kami knows she could use more help in that department, and he's been kind to her. It's nice to see her opening up more, and their brief interactions during the Chunin exams were enough for me to see him for the kind of person he is. Naruto's a good kid, and I absolutely refuse to believe he'll become a threat to the village. Genma found himself sighing, an agitated snarl escaping his lips. His mouth curled into a frown as he stared the Genjutsu mistress down. Believe what you want, Yuhi-san, but the kid's a Jinchuriki. He's able to tap into the Kyuubi's chakra and harness it to the point he can actually use it for a time. But more than that, after what he's been told, there's a chance he's become mentally unstable. Face it, the kid might be a threat, and it's a good idea to keep an eye on him. When Kurenai rose, her chair sliding backwards quickly enough that it hit the back of the chair behind her, clearly disturbing the person behind her, Genma followed suit and the two pointed their fingers at each other harshly. Before either could continue their argument, Asuma rose and slammed his hands down, palms flat on the table. Enough. Stop fighting, sit down, and shut up. Glaring at both of them, he watched as the two took their seats before he spoke again. Kurenai, I'm sorry, but Genma has a point. As much as we'd like to trust him, there's a good chance Naruto might have changed his opinions about the village. Someone close to him has just been revealed to have been lying to him his entire life. With as few friends as the kid's got, that has to have been a devastating blow. I don't want to doubt the kid, but right now there's no choice. Kurenai narrowed her eyes at her boyfriend and shook her head in disgust. I can't believe I'm hearing this from you, Asuma. We're supposed to have faith in the shinobi we train. He's just a child and you're already condemning him. If not for housing the Kyuubi, it's for something else. Forget it. I'm out of here. Rising again, Kurenai shoved past her friends and stormed out of the restaurant, anger practically exuding from her in waves. Oddly enough, both Anko and Yugao rose and shook their heads in disgust at what had just transpired. Guy didn't appear to be in any hurry to go anywhere, but his occasional mutter of unyouthful and other such things only brought the belief about that he was disappointed that they would doubt poor Naruto as well. Yugao chose not to say anything, instead opting to leave the restaurant to follow her friend, most likely hoping to soothe her and speak some words of comfort or something of the like. Anko, on the other hand, simply smacked Asuma in the back of the head as she walked past him. Asuma, you are one insensitive ass. Might want to think about the shit you're saying next time. If you hope to repair the damage you've done today, you'd better apologize to her soon. Smacking him again, the snake mistress of Konoha chased after her friends. Asuma groaned and simply resumed eating his meal for a time before he finally spoke again. And I finally understand exactly why Shikamaru insists women are just too damn troublesome to get involved with. Shaking his head, the Sarutobi male just chuckled softly to himself as he thought about what he would do next. I'd like to apologize to her, but the truth of the matter is that Naruto's a danger to the village. If keeping the village safe means I lose Kurenai, then so be it, I suppose. Outskirts of Tanzaka. Orochimaru found himself eyeing the blonde Jinchuriki curiously for a moment. He had donned new attire since the snake Sannin had last seen him during the Chunin exams. In fact, he looked remarkably similar to someone, though he couldn't quite place his finger on it at the moment. Naruto had forsaken that orange garb he wore before. Now he was donned in a comfortable, loose, red shirt that had the Uzumaki swirl emblazoned on front in the color of orange. Hey, he couldn't completely forsake that color after all. Along with that, he wore black pants with orange stripes going down the sides. The pants had a number of pockets, obviously filled with various items if the bulge in the pockets was anything to go by. The thing that most caught Orochimaru's eye, however, was the cape that Naruto now wore. It was very similar to the one the Yondaime Hokage wore, with only minor differences here and there. It looked as if it was handmade, most likely by Naruto himself. But more than that, the Jinchuriki had modified his hairdo somewhat to more closely resemble that of the Yondaime himself. It was then that it all clicked in Orochimaru's head. Kabuto, don't underestimate the Gaki. Something's different, and if my suspicions are correct, it wouldn't be prudent for you to take him lightly. Seeing the look on his master's face, Kabuto found himself frowning as he once again turned to look into Naruto's face. One eyebrow arching upwards, the medic Nin honestly couldn't see the danger in the runt. His skills were pitiful the last the silver-haired Nin had seen of him, and he highly doubted the Uzumaki boy could have changed much in the brief period of time since they had last seen each other. Still, deciding to heed his master's words, Kabuto decided it might be a good idea to take a cautious approach to this battle and first analyze his opponent to see what he could do. Naruto Uzumaki watched this interaction with clear amusement on his face. Turning his gaze towards Orochimaru, he looked calmly into the snake's eyes. You know Orochimaru Baka, I recently fought an old accomplice of yours according to what Jiraiya-sensei told me about him. I call him Fish Breath. Ring any bells? Seeing Orochimaru's face contort into that of a sneer, the boy grinned further. Good. I see you know who I'm talking about. Little Kabuto here? Compared to Kisame, he's nothing. And after the fact that I simply played around with Fish Breath, I'm going to enjoy tearing your little apprentice apart. Oh, I am ever going to enjoy this. Before Orochimaru could speak, Kabuto decided to retort in his place. Kisame Hashigaki? If you truly fought him, you'd either be dead or missing a few limbs by now at the very least. Nice bluff, Naruto-kun, but it won't work. Now stop dawdling, and show me what you think you're capable of. Naruto simply quirked an eyebrow at this as he tossed his kunai up into the air, catching it as it fell. He repeated this a few more times as he just watched the medic Nin calmly. Alright Kabuto, if you're truly in that much of a hurry to die. As for you Orochimaru Baka, stay out of this unless you want to get your ass handed to you by Jiraiya-sensei. Seeing the snake sneering at him, Naruto chuckled darkly before returning his gaze once more to Kabuto. Let's start. Quickly, Naruto threw his kunai forward at Kabuto before performing a few quick hand signs and shouting out, Taju kunai kage bunshin no jutsu, multiple kunai shadow clone technique. At this, hundreds of kunai appeared near the original, each one soaring straight at Kabuto from multiple directions. The medic Nin's eyes widened at this and he quickly used a kawarini, body replacement, to switch himself with a nearby rock, just barely out of harm's way. Narrowing his eyes, Kabuto adjusted his glasses in a brief moment before eyeing Naruto dangerously. Interesting. You weren't quite capable of a technique of that caliber the last time we saw each other. Perhaps you have improved a little after all. Still, it's not truly enough to defeat me now, is it? Smirking at the blonde before him, the medic Nin soon found himself frowning when he received no visible reaction. Instead, Naruto simply crossed his arms over his chest and smirked. What's so funny? Naruto simply pointed behind Kabuto, at which point the medic Nin finally turned only to receive a Rasengan to the face from one of Naruto's many shadow clones. That's what's so funny Kabuto. You remember that first kunai I threw? That was a shadow clone Yubaka. I simply had it henge into that form before I arrived. It's amazing how such a simple technique could prove to be so incredibly useful. You let your guard down, team. Kabuto groaned as he finished healing the damage done to him from the Rasengan. Yes, he hurt badly at that, but he wasn't finished yet. Instead, he quickly dispatched the shadow clone before turning angry eyes upon the blonde. You're going to pay for that, Naruto-kun. As he dashed towards Naruto, Kabuto couldn't help but feel something was off about the blonde. When he rushed in, the silver-haired nin swung at him numerous times, only for the blonde to swivel on his feet, take light hops backwards, or even spin around behind the medic nin and kick off of Kabuto's back only to flip away to land some few meters away. Finally stopping his assault, Kabuto turned to face his opponent again, taking a few calming breaths as he tried to figure out what had happened to cause Naruto to improve so drastically in such a short period of time. Before he could even formulate any more plans, he felt a chill breath on the back of his neck. Eyes widening, he felt himself wince as a sharp object, most likely a kunai, was embedded in his back, dangerously close to his spinal cord. You see, Kabuto? You're already dead, you just don't know it yet. Spinning around quickly, removing the kunai from his back, Kabuto found there was nobody behind him. All he saw was smoke from an obvious shadow clone having been dispelled. This isn't good. Why isn't this wound healing? What the hell is going on here? Kabuto's mind was racing. Honestly, he couldn't figure out if he had been caught in some kind of genjutsu or if something else was going on. There was no way Naruto could be beating him like this. Absolutely no fucking way. Then, something finally caught his attention. Naruto was nowhere to be seen. Looking briefly into his master's face, Kabuto saw the look he had adorned and knew he would be receiving no help from his master. A feeling of dread began to wash over the medic nin. It's really true. I'm going to die, aren't I? If I tried to run, I doubt I'd make it very far before Naruto was upon me. Worse, I'd be abandoning Orochimaru-sama to fight a Sannin by himself. With his arms wounded as they are, he would be at a disadvantage were I to abandon him. Damn it! Where the hell are you, Naruto? If I'm going to die, I'm at least going to make sure I take you with me. Naruto simply chuckled as he stepped out from behind Orochimaru and patted the snake Sannin on the shoulder. Wow, your apprentice has really turned into quite the mess, hasn't he, Orochimaru Baka? Heh, enjoying the show so far, I hope? Smirking up at the snake Sannin, Orochimaru simply glared back down at him without so much as a word slipping from his mouth. Ah, well, that's no fun. Hey, think it'd be okay to kill your precious fuck toy now? Nudging the Sannin in the arm, Naruto laughed loudly when he stepped away from the obnoxious brat. Kabuto spun on his heel, shooting a deadly glance straight at Naruto. How dare you disrespect Orochimaru-sama in such a way? Get away from him! The medic nin rushed at Naruto, only to see him to burst into a cloud of smoke. Fuck! Another shadow clone? Where the hell's the real one? It was then that he heard voices all around him as numerous shadow clones began to appear in the clearing, one by one. Maybe I'm here. Or maybe I'm over here? Who knows? Isn't that part of the fun in our little game, boy? Kabuto was shaking by now, his senses quickly being overtaken by the fear he was feeling. I'm outclassed. I underestimated him too much. I didn't think he was capable of any of this. I can't even find the real one, and I've been letting him get under my skin too much. Damn it! Calm down and think. Taking a few calming breaths, Kabuto went about dispatching the clones as quickly as he could. Occasionally, he'd take a few glancing blows, but he easily healed himself after he was finished with the clones. Still, despite the amount of chakra Kabuto actually possessed, he found himself feeling more and more exhausted as time went on. As he thought on it, the medic nin realized that the wound that had been delivered to his back was affecting him worse than he thought. It felt as if some kind of foreign chakra had invaded his system at that point, but Kabuto just couldn't figure out what it was or even if that particular theory had been correct. However, before he could even truly think about it, he found his eyes wandering towards Tsunade and her apprentice. A devilish smirk made its way onto his face at this point. Fine then, Naruto, if you want to play this little game of hide-and-seek, I'll change the rules a bit. In an instant, Kabuto was charging full sprint towards the still shaken Tsunade. As he expected, Naruto appeared in front of her, ready to stop Kabuto with his own body as he had to. Got you, Naruto-kun. His smirk widening, Kabuto attacked Naruto with extra gusto, clearly trying to finish the brat off once and for all. Oddly, Naruto didn't even seem to try to block the blows. The strangest part is when he simply reached up and gripped Kabuto's hand before a dark smirk appeared on his face. Like I said, Kabuto team, you were already dead. In fact, your death was decided even before the battle began. Laughing darkly, the Naruto before him exploded, sending Kabuto flying backwards with enough force he slammed into a large boulder that sat in the field. Screaming out in pain from the impact, Kabuto fell to his knees and wretched as he attempted to heal the damage that had been done. A moment later, the medic nin froze and his eyes went wide. And no. It can't be Shizen, the pig Taunton, and Tsunade all went up in a poof of smoke. More shadow clones? It can't be. Oh yes, Kabuto team. I recovered Tsunade-chan from the field of battle while you were fighting my clones. Another dark smirk across his face, the real Naruto finally stepped out from behind the boulder. Walking over to the downed medic Nin slowly, the blonde Jinchuriki gripped him by the hair tightly and raised him up to eye level. Why fight you personally when I can use my shadow clones to wear you down first? Oh, but that kunai that my shadow clone stabbed you with? That I coated with some of the Kyuubi's chakra. It's quite potent, don't you think? Naruto laughed darkly and simply caught Kabuto's wrist when the medic Nin went to attack him with what little he had left in him. At the look in his enemy's eyes, Naruto began to laugh more. Oh yes, you finally realize it, don't you, teen? Yes, I've been toying with you this entire time. I've been stringing you along like the little puppet you are until the right opportunity presented itself. Nodding at something behind Kabuto, the medic Nin felt another sense of dread wash over him. A nervous sweat began to chill his body as he turned his head ever so slightly to see another Naruto behind him, a wind-coated Rasengan in one hand and a Kyuubi-cloaked hand in the other. Oh yes, Kabuto team, this is going to hurt. While it's true I haven't perfected combining an element with the Rasengan yet, I can guarantee you this will hurt. Very, very badly. Smirking devilishly at this, Naruto turned Kabuto forcefully so he could face his death. This death won't be pleasant, I assure you. But it'll be highly amusing for me. Now face your death like the proud ninja you are, Kabuto. With that said, the Naruto clone first slammed its Kyuubi-cloaked hand straight into Kabuto's chest. It began to feed the chakra throughout Kabuto's body, making the medic Nin scream out in horrendous pain. When that hand was retracted, Kabuto could feel tears stinging at the corners of his eyes as the next attack was plunged into his open wound. The ball of pure chakra, now partially combined with wind chakra, began to tear him apart from the inside. After a moment, Kabuto's voice returned to him, and he screamed out in sheer agony right before his body was torn asunder, pieces of him flying all around the battlefield. Between the Kyuubi's chakra invading his system and his body being torn asunder, there was no chance of Kabuto recovering. Naruto smirked again as he turned to face Orochimaru. I promised him a painful death. Now, as much as I'd love to destroy you personally, Orochimaru Baka, I've done what I needed to. Jiraiya-sensei, it's your turn. At that, Jiraiya jumped into the clearing with Shizen and Tsunade. The three of them looked around at the gore that was once Kabuto, Orochimaru's dear medic. After a brief moment, the white-haired Sannin shifted his gaze to the traitor across from him. It seems your plan worked perfectly, Naruto-kun. I didn't quite expect, this, but you did a great job. In fact, you bought enough time for me to recover. Excellent job indeed. Nodding to himself, deciding to put off the fact that his godson just butchered somebody in quite an inhumane way, Jiraiya glanced back at Tsunade and frowned. She still seems pretty shaken up. I guess there's not much I can do to help her at this point. Turning back around, the white-haired Sannin began to think about what he could do at this point to defeat his old teammate once and for all. While it may be true that Orochimaru's arms were damaged, it was not to the extent that he was completely incapable of performing jutsu. After all, the elderly Sarutobi had decided against using the same jutsu Minato Namikaze had the night he sealed the Kyuubi away inside his son. Instead, the Sandaime Hokage had used a different technique that Kabuto hadn't quite been able to counter just yet. Whatever the jutsu had been, it caused a great deal of damage to Orochimaru, and rendered him incapable of using a great number of his jutsu. Still, the fact that he could still perform some of his jutsu, even a few powerful ones at that, was still troublesome and meant that Jiraiya would need to be cautious, even now. Watching as his godfather began the battle with Orochimaru, Naruto turned his attention to Tsunade. Walking over to her, the blonde Jinchuriki got down on one knee and gently gripped her chin, forcing her to look at him. Tsunade-chan, I want you to listen to me carefully, okay? Seeing that he now had her full attention, Naruto flicked her in the nose gently. This action caused her to blink a few times in confusion before he offered her a genuinely kind smile. I know things have been rough for you, and I know that even seeing blood reminds you of the tough times in your past. This gore around us right now probably doesn't help. I'm sorry that I did such a thing, even though I knew about your history and your fear of blood. Naruto simply sighed at this point, shaking his head as he thought through what he wanted to say to her. In the background, the sounds of the fight between Jiraiya and Orochimaru could be heard, but he paid it no heed, confident that his godfather would be just fine. While I can't pretend to know exactly what you're going through, I want you to know that I'll be here, as your godson and as a friend, to help you through your tough times. I need you to toughen up right now and fight through this fear of yours. Face it head on and go help your old teammate, Jiraiya-sensei. Orochimaru may be weakened, but he's still a tricky bastard. Jiraiya could use your help in dealing with that slippery bastard, and I'm sure you don't want to see him get away with hurting anyone else, regardless if they are close to you or not. Seeing as he still wasn't making enough progress in getting through to her, Naruto nodded his head and hugged her close, now whispering in her ear. Tsunade-chan, think of this. Orochimaru promised you he'd revive Nawaki and Dan, correct? Do you truly want him to disturb their bodies like that? If he made you a promise like that, it means he has access to them, doesn't it? The mere idea of him taking the bodies of your loved ones like that has to be rough, but more than that, think of what he could do with them given the time. If you stop him here and now, Nawaki and Dan can continue to rest in peace without being disturbed. Moving back just a bit, Naruto stared deep into her eyes and placed a gentle kiss on her forehead. Tsunade-chan, he's already tampered with the Shodame and Naidame Hokages, both Senju, both relatives of yours. You can't keep letting your old teammate play with the dead, with people's souls in such a horrendous way. Don't you think it's only fitting that you and Jiraiya destroy Orochimaru so he can't hurt anyone else? Tsunade found herself thinking on her godson's words, still not entirely recovered just yet. After a moment, she looked into his eyes and saw him smiling brightly at her. Slowly nodding her head, she blinked as she was wrapped up into another hug. Tsunade, I promise that no matter what it takes, I'll help you through this. I really will. No matter how long it takes or how tough it may be, I don't go back on my word. That's my Nindo after all. Smirking at her, Naruto stepped back away from her before looking at her necklace and pointing at it. Also, don't keep calling that necklace of yours cursed. Every time you do, I'll smack you or something, I don't know yet. Chuckling to himself, Naruto turned to watch the fight taking place. Tsunade, I'll tell you something I haven't even told Jiraiya-sensei yet. Sighing, he found himself glancing back over his shoulder at his godmother. I used to dream of being the Hokage. The highest and most respected position in the village. I figured that if I could become Hokage someday, then maybe people would start to respect me and treat me better. However, I've realized that that is something that will probably never happen, regardless of whether I'm Hokage or not. I'm not entirely sure what I want to do anymore. Do I want to make Konoha pay? Or would I rather leave the village and find a new home? Perhaps I'd like to stay in the village and prove people wrong still, that I'm not a loser and I can be a great ninja in my own way. I don't really know just yet. Sitting on the grass beneath him, Naruto folded his arms and lost himself in thought as he continued to speak. I've never had an actual family, no real friends. Well, besides Tucci and Iam, they've always been good to me. I used to consider the old man as a kind of grandfatherly figure to me, but well, that ship has sailed. Grumbling to himself about lying old men, Naruto soon continued on. I suppose my main goal right now is to find my own path in life. What will I do? Where will I go from here? It's hard to decide. Nobody respects me in the village, and while some people may treat me better than others, they don't even really try to understand me. Having to resort to pranks just to get any damn attention? Looking back on it, I was stupid to even do such a thing. Shaking his head, Naruto turned his gaze back to the battle taking place in front of him. I suppose one thing I want is to be loved. To feel some damn affection from somebody. I'm so used to all the hate by now that I don't even really care anymore. Kyuubi and I could make them all pay, sure, but are they worth it? Meh, probably not, I'll admit. Could be fun, yes. But I'll save that idea for later. Smirking to himself, Naruto heard Kyuubi protesting in his mind about that but assured her he wasn't actually planning to give up on his revenge against them. They would all pay in due time, he guaranteed. Tsunade, I don't care if you take the position of Hokage or not. In the end, it really comes down to you to make that decision for yourself. However, there is one person back in Konoha I want you to help. His name is Rock Lee and Gaara really hurt him bad. Rock Lee was one of the nicest people to me and I respect him for that and more. Sure, he's somewhat off his rocker, but you have to help him. Okay? So, please finish Orochimaru and return to Konoha with us. Despite everything, there are at least a few good people there. Sounds stupid, me saying that now. But it's true. Shrugging, he rose and patted himself down, clearly trying to remove some dust and more from his clothing. Besides, I just don't want you to abandon me when we're just getting to know each other. Family has to stick together, any? Tsunade slowly rose to her feet, glancing around her at the battlefield before focusing her gaze on her godson. Walking over to him, she wrapped her arms around him and hugged him close, not even noticing the deep blush that had taken hold at the simple fact her sizable bosom was pressing into his back. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Taking the necklace from around her neck, she slipped it around his neck and smiled as he turned to face her. Even if you give up on becoming Hokage, I hope this can bring you some kind of good fortune. I hope it leads you down a good path, one that will make you happy. I'm with you all the way. Hugging him close again, squashing his face between her breasts this time to the point he was struggling to breathe, she found herself grinning. Now, as you've requested, I'm going to go kick my old teammate's ass. Releasing her godson, Tsunade patted his shoulders and rushed off to join Jiraiya in kicking Orochimaru's ass. As Tsunade ran off to join the battle, Shizen rushed over to Naruto as he collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. Are you okay, Naruto-kun? Seeing him nod, she smiled and knelt down beside him. I'm sure everything will be alright, Naruto-kun. No matter what happens and no matter what you decide to do, we won't be abandoning you. Hugging him close, she smiled as they turned to watch the fight. Meanwhile, Jiraiya found himself feeling somewhat frustrated at the fact that he had yet to deal any truly devastating blows to his old teammate. The slippery snake continued to evade his most lethal attacks, and had even managed to land a few glancing blows on Jiraiya himself. What really surprised the white-haired Sannin is when Orochimaru actually managed to perform a damn summoning of all things. Rather than waste the chakra in performing a summoning of his own, Jiraiya had used his Doton, Yomi Numa, Earth Release, Swamp of the Underworld, to simply sink the wretched snakes before they could do any real harm. Currently, the two Sannin were glaring each other down, either one truly focusing on anything aside from the other. When Orochimaru sensed something, he quickly leaped backwards at the very moment Tsunade came crashing down in the spot he had been standing. As it was, he hadn't moved quickly enough as the shockwave sent the snake Sannin flying backwards until he could stop himself and correct his stance once again. Snarling at his two fellow Sannin, the snake found himself actually sweating under the pressure he was under. Damn. At this rate I might actually need to retreat. But Orochimaru shot a quick glance at Naruto, something that none of the others in the field missed. Perhaps I could kill the damned pest before I go. He could prove to be a real problem later on, especially when it comes time to collect my Sasuke-kun. But more than that, it would throw a wrench into Akatsuki's little plans. A sinister smirk played at the snake's lips as he turned back to his fellow Sannin. For now, I'll play a little longer with these two. Then, at the most opportune moment, I'll strike. Jiraiya and Tsunade both did not appreciate the smirk their old friend displayed upon looking at their godson. Quickly, the two of them performed their summoning, Jiraiya calling forth Gamabunta while Tsunade called forth Katsuyu. At the same time, having noticed what his old comrades were up to, Orochimaru quickly went through his hand signs before slamming his wounded hands down and summoning forth Manda. Before the large snake summon could speak, Orochimaru glared down at him and stomped one foot atop the summon's head. Don't speak. I'll get you your sacrifices later for disturbing you, but right now you're needed, Lord Manda. I ask that you focus on the fight at hand. The snake simply grumbled angrily at the blatant disrespect his summoner dared to show him. After it had finished its complaining, the snake summon focused on both Gamabunta and Katsuyu. Laughing lightly, it prepared itself for combat. It's been a while since I've seen the two of you. Let's see if either of you has actually improved any since last we fought, shall we? In response, the large toad summon simply scoffed and let out a long puff of smoke. It hasn't been nearly long enough, Snake. But that's enough talk. It's time you die, Manda. Gamabunta quickly leaped forward, unsheathing its blade and swinging it towards the snake in one quick motion. However, his foe had quickly slithered out of the way, having seen the attack coming before the toad had even made its move. Now, it slithered its way quickly towards Katsuyu, quickly coiling around the slug before it could move out of the way. I think I'll start with the snack first before dealing with you, Gamabunta. Smirking to itself, the snake summon began to squeeze tighter and tighter until Katsuyu finally split apart into numerous, smaller slugs that quickly moved away. What the summon didn't notice was one of the slugs moved over to Naruto, Shizen, and Tonton. Quickly, it relayed a message telling them to ready themselves for anything. Tsunade-sama really wants you to be careful, Naruto-san. She's worried for your safety, it seems. I'll be with you just in case, but be careful. Shizen found herself frowning at this, but she prepared to fight just in case while Naruto just nodded, still appearing rather calm despite the obvious danger he was in. Back on the battlefield, Tsunade had leaped onto the snake's head and was engaging Orochimaru in a battle of taijutsu. The slippery bastard continued to dodge this way and that, even ducking under a few swings before stretching out his neck and coiling around Tsunade in much the same way Manda had done to Katsuyu just moments before. Using her superior strength, however, Tsunade stomped hard on the snake's head, causing it to reel a moment, just enough to throw Orochimaru off balance temporarily. The medic took this opportunity to free herself from her old friend's grip and gripped him by the neck tightly. This is going to hurt, Orochimaru. Better prepare yourself. Smirking wickedly at him, she began to swing him about wildly, occasionally smashing him against Manda's back before pulling him towards her and smashing him in the face and chest a few times, again causing Orochimaru to reel from the pain inflicted. After a few moments, she flung Orochimaru towards Jiraiya and shouted after him. Jiraiya, you're up. Jiraiya found himself smirking as he and Gamabunta flashed through their hand signs, preparing a combination jutsu. When they unleashed their jutsu at the same time, they combined to form the Katon, Gameo Enden, Fire Release, Toad Oil Flame Bullet, which rushed dangerously towards Orochimaru. The hope was that not only would they take out Orochimaru, but they'd engulf Manda in the process. At the very least, they hoped they could at least force Manda to flee from the battle. Orochimaru snarled at this and quickly used the Kawarimi to escape the jutsu unscathed, leaving Manda to fend for himself. Tsunade had already abandoned her perch on the snake's head shortly after tossing her old teammate, now a good distance away from the dangerous summon battle. As expected, Manda chose to flee the battle rather than stay and assist Orochimaru any further. After all, it just wasn't worth it in the snake's eyes. Snarling at his predicament, Orochimaru sent out a Doton Kage Bunshin, Earth-release shadow clone, of himself to distract his old teammates while he snuck underground using another of his techniques. In a moment, he emerged behind Naruto with a wicked grin on his face. Moving quickly, he attempted to pierce the boy through with his Kusanagi, only to have the boy turn with a wicked grin on his face before exploding in a cloud of smoke, along with Shizen, Taunton, and Katsuyu. Glancing around quickly in an attempt to find his prey, Orochimaru failed to notice that his Doton Kage Bunshin had already been dealt with and Tsunade was hurrying his way. When she was almost upon him, the snake Sannin found himself feeling quite irritated as he turned to face her. When she was finally upon him, Orochimaru growled angrily, dodging out of the way of her attack before swinging the Kusanagi her way, only for her to duck and throw another punch his way. Naturally, the snake Sannin dodged the blow, but soon found himself under attack from Jiraiya as well. Sighing from the frustration, Orochimaru shook his head and quickly began to vanish underground once again. It would seem I've failed to take out the brat. No matter, I still have time. Farewell, you old fool, and to you as well, Tsunade. Smirking, Orochimaru made his escape while Jiraiya cursed about not being able to finish the slippery bastard off. Tsunade breathed a sigh of relief as she turned around to see Naruto and the others step out from behind a hinged Katsuyu. Chuckling at her godson's ingenuity in escaping such a dangerous situation, she wrapped him up in a hug before setting him back down on the ground. I'm glad you're okay, Naruto-kun. Though from the sounds of it, we're going to have to be careful, especially if Orochimaru's goal is to kill you for whatever reason. With everyone nodding in agreement, and the summons returning to whence they came, everyone decided it was best to return to Tanzaku and get some rest. Though before they could leave, Tsunade placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder and grinned down at him. Before I forget, I'll be taking the old man up on the offer of becoming the Godame Hokage. It should make it a little easier to look after my dear godson. Smirking at that, she patted him on the head before they all returned to get some well-deserved rest. Elsewhere, one of Orochimaru's hidden bases. The old snake slumped down in a chair within a darkened room. Snarling to himself, he threw his head back and began to laugh, almost hysterically. I didn't think the Kyuubi brat had it in him. Kabuto dead. It just doesn't seem possible. Shaking his head, his hair flipping around as he did, Orochimaru soon called for one of his Sound Four to join him. When Jirobo appeared mere moments later, he glared at the big man. Retrieve Karen for me, I have need of her. The big man nodded once and immediately disappeared again without a word. When Karen stepped into the room a number of minutes later, she looked somewhat nervous at being in her master's presence. Narrowing his eyes at this, Orochimaru told her to come closer. Karen, I have need of you. You're going to be replacing Kabuto. At this, Karen's eyes widened and she looked curiously into her master's narrowed eyes. What happened, Orochimaru-sama? Why do I need to replace Kabuto-senpai? The redhead had a feeling she already knew the answer to this question, but the possibility of such a thing happening was very, very slim. Orochimaru grumbled and nodded his head. Kabuto was killed when we went to retrieve Tsunade. Before you bother to interrupt me and ask, no, it wasn't Tsunade that killed him. I'm going to tell you this now. If you ever encounter a brat named Naruto Uzumaki, at this, Karen's eyes widened slightly. She had already discovered a few months ago that she was an Uzumaki as well, one of the last of her clan. That's a tale for another time, however. Seeing that she was paying attention again, Orochimaru continued. As I was saying, if you ever encounter Naruto Uzumaki, do not engage him. The brat is far too dangerous. The entire time, little Naruto-kun was just toying with Kabuto. Something's changed in him, and I don't like it. Karen slowly nodded, still trying to register that there was another Uzumaki out there besides her. After a time, she nodded once again and let out a heavy sigh. Kabuto-senpai defeated? Even killed? I didn't think that was possible for anyone besides you and your fellow Sannin, or those from Akatsuki even. It really sounds like this Naruto is pretty dangerous. Seeing her master nod in response to that, she began to ask what she could do for her master now that Kabuto was gone. The entire time, however, her thoughts would continually drift to this Naruto Uzumaki as she wondered what kind of relationship they had. Were they cousins, perhaps siblings? She couldn't be sure, but she wanted to find out, despite how dangerous an individual he was in Orochimaru's eyes. 4 days later, Konoha. As the group of 5, Taunton included of course, approached the Konoha gates, they couldn't help but notice the large crowd that had gathered. Well, it would seem they've been expecting us. I wonder what we can expect from this. Jiraiya stated, clearly worried about how the villagers would treat Naruto upon their arrival in the village. Naruto, understanding what the pervy sage meant by that, simply nodded his head as he glanced at the crowd ahead of them. The group of 5 was almost at the gates, and he couldn't help but dread having to deal with any idiots. I swear if any of them tries to attack me, I don't know if I'll be able to restrain myself. As Tsunade and the others looked his way, they could clearly see him clenching his teeth in anger at the sheer prospect of the villagers attacking him again. Frowning, Shizen moved closer to Naruto and rested a hand upon his shoulder gently. We're here for you, Naruto-kun. No matter what happens, no matter what they do, just remember that we're on your side. Nobody can hurt you anymore, especially now that we're here. Seeing Naruto nod and smile up at her, Shizen offered him a kind smile in return. Moments later, as they walked into the village, the group didn't expect to be greeted by a lot of cheering. Of course, there were some that were sneering at Naruto, and others that actually dared to speak out and call him demon brat and the like. Shaking his head, the blonde Jinchuriki tuned those bastards out. At least until a certain pink-haired teammate stepped out in front of him, glaring daggers at him. You have guts coming back here after what you've done, Naruto. The way she said his name, it sounded like it was hard for her to even speak it anymore. In fact, it appeared to leave a rather bad taste in her mouth. Stupid baka. You may have the others fooled, but you're definitely not the Yandame's son. You're not a hero, you're just a damn baka that doesn't know when to stop pretending. I heard you were there when Itachi hurt Sasuke-kun, and you didn't even try to stop it. It should be you laying in that hospital bed right now, not him. Sasuke-kun's 10 times the shinobi you'll ever be, Naruto baka. At this, Jiraiya and Tsunade looked about ready to strangle the little bitch, only for Naruto to glance their way and shake his head no. Glancing back at Sakura, Naruto narrowed his eyes and sent cold chills down the pinkhead's spine. The team brought it on himself. He deserved what he got, and honestly, I don't give a shit what happens to him anymore. Personally, I would have liked it if Itachi had killed the bastard. Why? Because maybe then the arrogant team would have learned his damn lesson. Sakura stood, mouth agape for a time as she tried to process what Naruto baka just said to her. When it all finally registered in her mind, she pulled her fist back and attempted to punch Naruto square in the face, only for her arm to be caught at the wrist. She could feel the pressure Naruto was exerting and began to wince and cry out from the pain. It felt as if he could break her bones at any given second. Leaning in close, Naruto smirked devilishly and whispered in her ear only for her to hear. Try that again and I'll not only break your wrist, I'll sever your arm from your body, Sakura-chan. Do you understand me, you stupid bitch? Seeing her nod feverishly, Naruto shoved her back and then pointed off to the side. Good. Get out of our fucking way and don't approach me again. You're still my teammate and I may even be sent on missions with you, but I won't tolerate your shit ever again. Everyone watched as Sakura rushed off, tears in her eyes as she clutched at her wounded wrist. Smirking to himself, Naruto looked around at the villagers that had dared to shout insults at him. As for those of you that still insist on throwing your insults my way, I recommend you shut the hell up and be a bit more careful from now on. Attack me ever again, try to damage my home, anything, and I'll hunt down whichever one of you tried your stupid shit and kill you where you stand. I won't fucking hesitate. I'm sick of the shit I've had to put up with from you bastards. With the entire crowd going silent, Naruto didn't even care that the others weren't even following him anymore. Instead, he adjusted his pack slightly as he approached the Hokage Tower in silence. Behind him, the two Sannin and Shizen watched him, worried expressions on their faces. Jiraiya found himself releasing a breath he didn't know he had been holding before he began to follow after his godson. Glancing over his shoulder, he saw Tsunade and Shizen quickly following suit. I think that could have gone a bit better, but at least they probably got the message now. With a shrug, Jiraiya smirked as he looked after the gaki. At least it didn't go badly. Tsunade actually laughed lightly at that. True. He could have killed that girl and raised half the town by now, I expect. Seeing Jiraiya and Shizen nod, the blonde Sannin simply grinned. Things here are certainly going to be interesting, I'm willing to bet on it. At this, Shizen and Jiraiya both paled, but neither opted to say anything. Instead, the group hurried to catch up to Naruto. Meanwhile, back in the crowd, Shikamaru found himself frowning at the new development. Thought so. It's troublesome, but approaching him is going to prove difficult now. I just hope he can forgive all of us for not being there for him when we should have been. Shaking his head, the pineapple-haired young man rubbed his shoulder as he turned and walked off. Don't worry, Naruto, we'll fix the damage we've done and earn your trust again. That's a promise. I just hope this doesn't prove to be too damn troublesome. However, elsewhere in the crowd, Shikamaru's sensei didn't exactly agree with that sentiment. Lighting up his cigarette, Asuma watched as the crowd began to disperse, clearly not sure what to make of this new development. Shaking his head as he took a puff of his cig, the Jonin-sensei looked towards the Hokage tower. Thought so. It looks like he's going to need to be kept under watch at all times. The boy's changed, and like it or not Minato, somebody has to keep him in check while within the village. With that thought, Asuma shined away, clearly disturbed by what he had just seen take place. Hokage Tower, Hokage's office. Hiruzen Sarutobi smiled at his old students and the rest in their company. However, when his eyes landed upon Naruto's, the old man felt the color drain from his cheeks. So I was right. You despise me now, don't you, Naruto? When the blonde simply narrowed his eyes more, the elderly Hokage shook his head and stared solemnly down at his desk. It might not mean anything anymore, but I am truly, truly sorry, Naruto-kun. No matter how long it takes, even if it takes me until the day I die, I'll try to make this up to you. I don't expect you to ever forgive me, nor do I think I'm deserving of your forgiveness, but I want to gain your trust back somehow. You are very dear to me, and losing your faith in me, I don't know what to say. I don't know what I could possibly do to make it up to you. Naruto scoffed at that, and simply turned his gaze to look around the room instead of at the old man. Good luck with that, old man. After how you betrayed me, don't even count on receiving my trust again anytime soon. You fucked up, and I can barely stand being in the same room as you anymore. At the moment though, you're still our Hokage, so I'm obligated to stand here and tolerate your shit. When the ANBU looked about ready to drop from the ceiling and punish the brat for his disrespectful attitude, the Sandaime raised a hand and stopped them. I understand, Naruto-kun. I'll drop this topic for now. We can discuss things later, I hope. With a heavy sigh, the Sandaime looked to Jiraiya and Tsunade. I see you've managed to convince Tsunade-chan to return. Thank you for that, Jiraiya, Naruto. Now Tsunade, will you take up the mantle of Hokage so I can retire from this position? I can't even stand being the Hokage of this village anymore. You should have heard and seen some of the crap that these stupid villagers have been spouting and doing since they learned of Naruto's heritage. Shaking his head, the elderly Hokage rested his forehead against his desk and groaned out in frustration. While most villagers seem as if they're genuinely apologetic for what they've done and want to make things up to dear Naruto-kun, there are a good number of villagers, and even ninja, that have rioted these past few days. Yes, the riots were quickly put down, but the villagers and ninja are at odds with each other. While one group wants to make Naruto feel better about the village and accepting of not only their apologies, but of their offers of friendship, the other group wants to get Naruto banished. I'm afraid of what they might try to accomplish such a feat. Looking up into Tsunade's eyes, it was obvious that he had aged further since the time that Jiraiya and Naruto had left in search of Tsunade. The old man was very, very tired and could hardly find it in him to continue on with this shit anymore. Tsunade, we'll hold your coronation tomorrow if you have truly accepted the job. I hope dearly that you can fix all the damage that has been caused by my inaction over the years. Kami knows that something has to be done. Looking past his students at Naruto, he caught the boy's eyes again and offered a sagely smile. Whether you believe it or not, Naruto-kun, I am on your side in this. Those freaking bastards don't even deserve to breathe the same air as you. As any of us that know better than those fucking. As the Hokage went to rant on, Naruto held up a hand and sighed as he shook his head. Don't, Hokage-sama. Just don't. Words won't fix things between us. You know that as well as I do. If you want to prove anything to me or anyone else, actions speak a lot louder than words. As you said already, you may never earn my trust or my forgiveness, but you still have a chance to prove to me that you aren't completely full of shit and you mean what you say. In the meantime, I'll at least try to be civil towards you. Do we have a deal? At that, Hiruzen Sarutobi simply nodded and remained quiet for a moment. After a time, he looked to Tsunade and motioned for her to take a seat. I need to speak with Tsunade for a time. The rest of you are dismissed. Please, be careful out there, Naruto-kun. Some may try to do you harm. Naruto simply grumbled at that as he turned and opened the door once more. Let them try. With that, he left the office and walked off with Jiraiya and Shizen. The Hokage simply shook his head and turned towards his old students so they could discuss what she would have to do and things she'd have to look out for in the coming days. 2 days had passed since Naruto's return to Konoha. So far the Namikaze boy had been left alone by everyone except his godparents and sister-like figure, Shizen. However, they knew it wouldn't remain this way forever, and were gradually trying to prepare for whatever may come their way. The day after their return, Tsunade was inducted as the Godame Hokage, much to a certain Jonin-sensei's ire. Asuma knew that with his father, he at least had a chance of making the old man see things from his point of view. With the Senju in office, things were going to become rather difficult. The Sarutobi hadn't said anything to Tsunade as of yet, but he was trying to figure out just what he could do to convince the Godame, or those around her, that Naruto needed to be kept under surveillance at all times. After all, the Namikaze boy was a threat to the village and needed to be treated as such. The day of Tsunade's coronation, she had visited the hospital to have a look at her patients. And she wanted to check on the status of the medic in the hospital to both evaluate them and determine just what she'd have to do to improve their capabilities. Flashback. The first person Tsunade checked on was the bushy-browed Rock Lee. Seeing as Naruto had come with her to visit just this patient, the Senju looked to both he and Lee's sensei, Mike Guy, shortly after doing her evaluation of his condition. Frowning at the both of them, the buxom lady shook her head sadly. I'm afraid it doesn't look good. There's a good possibility that he'll never be a ninja again with these injuries. Upon seeing their disheartened expressions, Tsunade shook her head and smiled softly at her godson. I'll do some research and see if there's anything that can be done for him. In the meantime, don't lose hope. Have some faith in me and give me the time I need to figure something out. Now, I'm afraid I have to go visit my other patients. As soon as she saw the scowl on Naruto's face, the Godame Hokage knelt down and smothered him in her bosom. I know how you feel, Naruto-kun, but this is part of my job. Besides, if they say or try anything, I promise I'll do something about it. For now, go on home and get some rest. Okay? Present time. True to her word, Tsunade had indeed begun research in an attempt to find some way to heal Rock Lee. The thing that really bugged Naruto, however, was the fact that Sasuke and Kakashi had been healed quite easily and were up and about as if nothing had happened. One would think that after the experience Sasuke had, he would have lost some of his arrogance and learned a bit of humility. Sadly, that wasn't the case. The Uchiha was practically blaming Naruto for everything that had transpired on that day. The Namake's boy had tried hard not to let that piss him off, but he had begun to feel like truly crushing the bastard and making him beg for mercy at his feet. Kakashi, on the other hand, was still acting like his usual self. It was almost as if he had never been put into that coma in the first place. What really bothered Naruto about his sensei was the fact that he hadn't even thought to check on the blonde to see if he was alright. Instead, the bastard had checked on Sasuke immediately upon hearing what happened to him. Currently, the Namake's boy was sitting on his couch, flipping through a book he had found tucked away in his parents' room. It had made for an interesting read thus far, but there wasn't any special information about anything important that he could garner from what he had read thus far. All in all, it seemed to be just a regular book. Still, the whiskered blonde had enjoyed reading it and admitted to his family and the Kyuubi that it was relaxing to just sit and read like this every now and then. Apparently it took his mind off of the shit going on in the village, as he put it. Thankfully, Naruto's godparents, Shizen and Tonton, had opted to move in with the Namakes. They all felt it was the best idea, and he hadn't voiced any complaints towards the idea. They all got along quite well, despite how the boy behaved every now and again. There was the occasional awkward moment where Jiraiya would be caught trying to peep on Tsunade while she was in the shower, or while she was getting changed for bed, or any number of other situations. Naruto and Shizen did their best to just ignore those occasions and had grown used to seeing Jiraiya in poor shape after one of Tsunade's beatings. How the pervert didn't get the damn message after his 12th or so time trying to sneak a peek, the two of them just couldn't understand. Being drawn from his thoughts, the whiskered Namake slipped a bookmark into his book to keep his place. Rising from the couch, he glanced towards the front door and frowned. What had drawn the boy from his idle thoughts, you might ask? Somebody was out front, trying to get in to at least knock on the front door. Grumbling angrily at the interruption, the blonde opened the front door and walked to the gate. What he saw caused the blonde Namakes to release a frustrated sigh. Allowing his visitor entry into his home, Naruto turned and walked back towards the front door. What do you want, Shikamaru? This better be important. Following after his friend, or at least he hoped Naruto was still his friend, the Nara glanced over his shoulder at the person that had decided to tag along with him, Ino Yamanaka. She was acting somewhat hesitant, an unusual thing for her. Still, she quickly followed after the boys and entered the home alongside her teammate. As Naruto went to make some tea for his guests, Shikamaru and Ino sat upon one of his couches, quietly conversing amongst themselves about what they should say and how they should broach the subject they wished to discuss. Soon enough, Naruto came out, set the teacups down before his guests, and leaned back on the couch he had been sitting on before, slowly sipping away at his tea. I'll ask this again, what do you want, Shikamaru? The Nara hesitated for a moment before he finally spoke up. Naruto, I saw what happened with Sakura upon your return to the village. I don't blame you one bit for what you did. When we learned about your heritage and about everything you've been through, she just continued to deny that you are who the Sandaime said you were. Ino piped in at this point, much to Naruto's annoyance. She's been such a bitch about everything, despite the fact that you're the one that saved her life. I'm amazed you didn't break her arm when she tried what she did the other day. Kami knows she had it coming. Naruto quirked a brow at this. Looking Ino over carefully, the blonde found himself chuckling as he set his teacup down and eyed the platinum blonde curiously for a while longer. Interesting. You'd prefer I injure the bitch further then? Ino blinked in response to the question before she looked down at her lap. She wasn't sure how exactly to respond to Naruto's question, but she knew that she wanted to make amends for how she had treated him before. I don't know, Naruto. She really does deserve it, and I know a lot of us wouldn't blame you if you snapped her arm or something, but… Naruto shrugged and decided to interrupt his fellow rookie at this point. You were friends with her, and can't understand why she changed so much. Now that she's like this, your friendship is through, you're concerned about me, blah blah blah. Do I have the gist of it, Ino? Ino blushed slightly before nodding her head nervously. Why yes. You don't deserve any of the shit you've had to go through. And those stupid idiots still saying you're not the Yandame's son, and threatening to oust you from the village, and all that other stupid crap they've been saying since the Sandame's announcement, I can't understand any of it. You're a great guy, Naruto. It just doesn't make any sense to me. At this, her fellow blonde just chuckled for a good while before finally wiping a tear from his eye and looking Ino over carefully once more. Interesting. You treated me like shit for quite some time, and now here you are trying to kiss my ass. I have to admit, I didn't quite expect this. Tell me, Ino, what is it you're truly after? Ino looked taken aback at this, but before she could speak up in her defense, Shikamaru leaned forward and began to speak. Shortly after the Hokage made the announcement, a large group of us got together and discussed the situation. We all agreed that we hadn't always treated you with the respect you deserved. Most of us agreed that we needed to make amends and work towards building a better rapport with you, Naruto. Seeing as he now had Naruto's attention, the Nara continued on. Whether you believe it or not, or even wish to accept it, you do have friends here, Naruto, that will support you regardless of what happens or what you choose to do. While it's true that a lot of villagers and ninja are going to try and kiss your ass to try and get on your good side, there are those of us that aren't like that. Ino and I are amongst the second group, those that genuinely want to make amends and work towards building a better friendship with you. We care, Naruto, and that's a hell of a lot more than most people in the village can claim right now. Naruto shrugged his shoulders in response, and quietly sipped his tea for a time as he went over everything he had just heard in his mind. After a short conversation with the Kyuubi regarding her thoughts on the matter, the blonde let out a heavy sigh and shook his head. I see. Looking into Ino's eyes at this point, the Namikaze boy smirked ever so slightly. Shikamaru, I can believe as being sincere. You, on the other hand, I'll go ahead and give you a little test. Pass the test and you'll have proven to me that you really do want to fix things between us. Fail, and you had best leave me the fuck alone. Understood? The young Yamanaka girl hesitantly nodded at that, incredibly nervous about what this test might be and if she even had a chance in hell of passing it. What she heard come out of Naruto's mouth next caused her eyes to widen and she began to shake. Denounce Sasuke's name in front of everybody. I then want you to go straight up to Sasuke, smack the bastard as hard as you can, and tell him that you don't give a shit about him anymore. After all, he's not worth it, now is he? Smirking at her, the Namikaze leaned back and continued to sip at his tea until he felt like speaking again. Of course, since you're such a fangirl of his, this is impossible, now isn't it, Ino? As Naruto laughed to himself, the platinum blonde Yamanaka began to shake harder. She hadn't expected Naruto to demand such a thing of her. Now she was torn between the Uchiha she believed she loved and her desire to make amends with Naruto. Naruto's laughter only made her feel worse and worse until she felt like the world was caving in around her. Shikamaru, seeing Ino's distress, placed a hand on her shoulder and began to speak to her. Ino, it's okay if you can't do it. I know you want to make amends, but I also know how you feel about Sasuke. Just do what you feel is right and best for you. Ino looked into her teammate's eyes and nodded slowly, his words making sense in her mind. Looking at the whiskered blonde, the Yamanaka decided to voice a question. See, can I take some time to decide, Naruto? I just need some time to think on this, okay? The Namikaze quirked a brow at her request before shrugging his shoulders. You really are considering this, aren't you? I thought you'd get upset, yell at me, and leave. That's impressive by itself, but it's still not enough. Go ahead and take as much time as you need. I'm not completely heartless after all. Ino thanked Naruto and left his home so she could go for a walk and clear her mind. She needed time to think, and there was no way she could do that in the presence of one of the people she now had to choose between. Back at the estate, Shikamaru smiled at Naruto and nodded his head in thanks. Thank you for doing that, Naruto. Ino is being sincere in her desire to make amends, but that is a hard request for her to comply with. Naruto Namikaze shrugged his shoulders and smirked at the Nara. I know she's being sincere. But I won't have her being all gaga over that shitty Uchiha. Understand? Shikamaru chuckled lightly at that and nodded his head. Of course. I can't help but wonder what she'll decide in the end. The blonde glanced towards the ceiling and shrugged once more. Hell if I know Shikamaru. If she chooses Sasuke, I don't really give a fuck. It's her choice after all, even if it's a poor one. Looking back towards the Nara air, Naruto frowned and decided to voice his earlier question once again. So, what the hell brings you here, Shikamaru? I know what you said, but I believe there's a little something more to your visit than what you claimed. The brown-haired male chuckled at that, and nodded his head in response. I wanted to invite you to take a walk with me, Naruto. Nothing special, but I think it could do you some good to get out of the house and take in some fresh air. That, and I just want to talk with you for a while. Things are bad in the village, and I'm not sure what'll happen in the coming days, but I was hoping to show you that the village isn't all bad. Know what I mean? Shrugging his shoulders, Naruto nodded his head in response. So long as you understand that walking with me has its risks, then I'm fine with that. If anyone tries anything, however, you'd best step back. You've been a decent friend to me, Shikamaru, and I appreciate your honesty. Therefore, I'd rather you not get hurt in the crossfire, because I will crush anyone that tries anything stupid. If you need proof of that, ask your Godame Hokage. Orochimaru's right-hand man was only the first of many that will die by my hands. A short time later, Konoha Park. Shikamaru had chosen to lead his friend on a walk through the park. It was a generally peaceful place, and thankfully, as per the Nara's expectations, it was not heavily trafficked at the moment. There were a few couples here and there, enjoying picnics together, taking strolls, or simply enjoying being together as they watched the clouds float by. Other than these few people, however, there wasn't much going on today in the park, so it was the perfect place for these two friends to relax and enjoy a conversation together. Reaching a shaded spot under a rather large tree, the Nara sat down and watched as Naruto took a seat next to him. I'm sure you've already been informed of this, but things have changed in Konoha, Naruto. Sighing at this, Shikamaru glanced sideways at his friend to try and gauge his reaction. You should be careful, Naruto. Even I don't know who you can trust and who you cannot. Naruto smirked at this and shook his head as he turned his gaze on Shikamaru. And who's to say I can even trust you then? The Nara sighed softly at this before shaking his head and responding. That's something you're going to have to decide for yourself. Trust is a tricky thing, Naruto. You've found that out for yourself just recently after all when you learned the Sandaime had been lying to you your entire life. The blonde lay back on the grass and closed his eyes, releasing a soft sigh before responding. Then you understand why I don't know if anyone can be trusted. Still, I know you, Shikamaru. I'm willing to offer you my trust, but you're going to have to listen to my request first. The brown-haired Nara looked to Naruto and nodded slowly. I'm curious to hear this request of yours, Naruto. What is it? Naruto Namikaze shook his head and opened his right eye slowly to look into Shikamaru's face. Not here. Whether I like it or not, we're being watched. Nodding his head just slightly to the left, Naruto watched as the Nara glanced over and managed to spot just a glimpse of someone before whoever it was disappeared from sight. He continued to glance in the directions Naruto indicated and began to frown. If you want to hear my request, meet me tonight in my house. We're safe there. Nobody can get in without my permission. Shikamaru nodded his head slowly before he extended a hand to Naruto and helped him up off the ground. It was getting dark and the Nara was beginning to worry that they were in trouble. As they began their walk back towards the Namikaze estate where Naruto would be safe, the Nara couldn't help but notice more and more figures in his peripheral vision. Sadly, as they were preparing to leave the park and enter the village proper, a group of shinobi surrounded the duo. Cursing under his breath, Shikamaru glanced around at each of them in turn. What are you after? Who sent you? One of the masked shinobi stepped forward and began to speak. Our leader wishes to speak with Naruto. Try to resist and your companion will die. Is that understood, Uzumaki? The blonde released an irritated sigh as he looked calmly straight at the apparent leader of the group. The name is Naruto Namikaze. I understand that my mother was a wonderful woman, but I think it's more fitting that I take on my father's name. It's a real big fuck you to those of you who refuse to acknowledge me as the Yandaime's son, don't you think? Smirking as the masked man flinched, Naruto soon took a step forward. Besides, do you really think I'd let you kill one of the few people that's actually been fairly nice to me during my time here in Konoha? If so, you're sorely mistaken. The leader of the masked men nodded, satisfied with that answer. It is good to see you understand, Naruto Uzumaki. Come, we will take you to see our leader now. As soon as the man extended his hand to Naruto, the Namikaze's lip curled upwards into a smirk. Within an instant, the man's arm was torn from his body at the elbow. Listening to the screams emanating from the now crippled man, the blonde began to laugh. This laugh sent chills down Shikamaru's spine. It wasn't like anything he had ever heard from his friend before. This was dark, scary, and more importantly, it sounded evil. It was obvious that Naruto relished in the pain he had just caused his enemy. This is worse than I thought. He's been broken. As Shikamaru glanced around, he realized that he would have to fight as well. The choice had been taken out of his hands. Shikamaru was now in Naruto's corner regardless of what may come. He was already a target just for being near the blonde Namikaze, and he would continue to be in danger from this point forward. Shaking his head at the troublesome situation, the Nara spun around and quickly used his Kageme no Jutsu, shadow imitation technique, to entrap 7 of the assailants that decided to try and attack him from behind. Realizing Shikamaru had failed to capture the remaining 3 that were attempting to take his life, Naruto spun on his heel, swinging his leg in a horizontal arc as he did. What happened next caught everyone in the area off guard. Each of the assailants that had attempted to attack Shikamaru were bisected neatly in 2 at the hip, their bodies collapsing to the ground in a heap as blood sprayed from their disconnected bodies. Setting his foot back on solid ground, Naruto smirked as he turned back to the others. I've learned some new tricks, as you can no doubt see. Please don't try to run. It will only prolong the pain you're in for. As they prepared to flee using the Shunshin no Jutsu, body flicker technique, each of their hands were suddenly cleaved off by some invisible, unknown force. As his enemies screamed out in pain, Naruto went through a few hand seals before thrusting his hands out towards the masked assailants. Futon, Kijikakaze, Wind Release, Crushing Wind. Shikamaru watched as the remaining assailants were crushed under an invisible force, obviously a powerful block of wind if the name of Naruto's jutsu was anything to go on. However, what really caught him off guard about the situation is what Naruto told him to do. Shikamaru, take one of your kunai and kill the bastards. The Naruto's eyes widened momentarily before his gaze drifted towards the masked men. His mind began running through everything that had just happened and what he knew about these men, Naruto, and the situation at hand. Seeing Naruto glancing at him out of the corner of his eyes, Shikamaru ran a hand through his hair and sighed in frustration. Shit. Naruto's testing me. But more than that, he does know what he's saying. If these people get the chance to report back to whoever their leader is, it could just mean more trouble. I haven't killed before, but looking towards the trapped assailants, Shikamaru groaned and, unclasping his kunai pouch, withdrew a kunai and began approaching the enemies. If things continue as they have been, I'll have to eventually. I hate this, but there's no time but the present. I just hope this doesn't come back to bite me in the ass later. As Shikamaru neared the downed men, he drew a few shaky breaths before kneeling down and stabbing his kunai into the first man's neck. As he felt the man's life fading, the Nara clenched his eyes shut and felt as his body began to quiver. After a few moments, he fought back the feeling, withdrew his kunai, and proceeded to kill the next of the enemies. This continued on until every last man and woman had been killed. By the time it was over, the Nara was pale and felt as if he was about to vomit. As his friend began to collapse, Naruto rushed to his side and held him upright. Whoa there, Shikamaru. Let's get you home. Drink plenty of water, talk with your father, and just rest as best you can for the night. I know this was your first kill, so just take as much time as you need. For a while, they walked in silence together, Naruto having to support Shikamaru most of the way until the feeling finally came back to his legs. As soon as he was able to walk on his own again, the Nara took a few deep, albeit shaky breaths, and began to talk. Why are you okay with me talking to my father about what happened? The blonde quirked an eyebrow as he looked his friend in the eyes. That's the first thing you say after what happened? Chuckling at that thought, Naruto Namikaze shook his head and took the time to just get all the laughter out of his system before he answered Shikamaru's question. I really just don't care. I plan to talk with Bachan, the Godame, about the attack and get her to send somebody to clean up the mess. As for you, it's clear that you need someone to talk to about this. And besides, I don't think Shikako-san will take kindly to somebody threatening to end his son's life. Explain the situation to him, and I believe I'll have another ally in my corner. Hearing that, Shikamaru sighed and nodded slowly. I see. I suppose I should have expected that answer. Doesn't matter, it makes sense, and we were already on your side to begin with. I'll pay you another visit tomorrow if I'm feeling up to it. If not, I'll see you when I'm feeling better, okay, Naruto? The blonde Namikaze nodded slowly before he led the Nara up to his front door and rapped his knuckles on the door. As soon as Yoshino Nara opened the door, Naruto nodded greetings to her and escorted her son inside. He may have been able to walk, but he was still feeling ill and the blonde wasn't comfortable just leaving him alone until he was sure Shikamaru was okay. As the Nara female questioned them about what happened and why they had blood on them, Naruto looked to her and frowned. Yoshino-san, please calm yourself. Your son is fine for the most part at least. Suffice it to say, the 2 of us were attacked on our walk. I promise you that your son will tell you and your husband in further detail as soon as he is feeling better. For now, can you please ensure he gets something healthy to eat, a glass of water, and plenty of rest tonight? Yoshino nodded slowly before handing him a wet rag. Thanking her, Naruto proceeded to wipe the blood off of his arms and face before taking the rag to his friend. I'm going to return home for now. Take your time to recover from your experience tonight, Shikamaru. Don't try to push yourself too hard. My request can wait, your health is more important. Rising to his feet, the blonde patted his friend atop his head before turning, bowing politely to Yoshino, and leaving the Nara home. As he watched his friend leave through the front door, Shikamaru chuckled to himself just slightly before bringing a hand to his face and sobbing quietly to himself. When this happened, Yoshino quickly sat down beside him on the couch and wrapped her son in a tight embrace, trying to console him and ask him what happened that had him so distraught. Things are so much worse than I thought. The Namake's estate, 10 minutes later. The moment Naruto stepped through the front door of his home, Tsunade crushed him in another powerful hug. Throughout their short time living together thus far, the Namake's boy had grown quite used to this sort of treatment. As soon as she pulled back, allowing the boy to breathe once more, the Godame looked him over carefully. Where were you? I was so worried about you, Naruto. The whiskered young man smiled up at her and shrugged his shoulders. I took a walk with Shikamaru. He appeared here earlier today with Ino Yamanaka. We talked for a short while before Ino left, after which Shikamaru insisted I needed some fresh air. With another shrug, Naruto walked with his godmother over to the couch and sat beside her. After a moment's hesitation, the younger blonde rested his head upon Tsunade's shoulder and closed his eyes. He was exhausted from the events of the day, and he felt safe like this. On our way back here, a bunch of masked men attacked us. They weren't regular NBU though. These ones were different. Tsunade hugged her godson close and kissed the top of his head. It's alright now, Naruto-kun. I'll look into who they could have been. Maybe if I talk to the old man, he might have some idea of who they were. But before that, tell me what happened. Naruto Namake's chuckled softly and nodded slowly as Tsunade laid his head in her lap. They were apparently sent to bring me before their leader, whoever that is. They threatened to kill Shika if I didn't cooperate with them. Sighing at this, Naruto continued on before his godmother could speak. We didn't have much choice other than to kill them. Shika's resting at his home, and I told him to take it easy until he's feeling better. These were his first kills and I understand that he needs to take some time to deal with it. Tsunade frowned at this and nodded her head slowly. Where are the bodies, sweetie? Naruto yawned and nestled into his godmother's lap as he slowly began to drift off to sleep. The park. They're near the entrance closest to the academy. Tsunade nodded her head and gently ran her fingers through her godson's hair, watching as his breathing slowed and he fell asleep. Smiling down at him, the Godame looked up when Shizen stepped into the room with a cup of coffee in hand. Shizen, send some ANBU to the park to clean up a mess. Naruto and Shikamaru were attacked by some unknown masked assailants. Make sure you send some men to guard the Nara boy as well while you're at it, alright? Shizen nodded and placed her cup down on the table. Is Naruto-kun okay, Tsunade-sama? Tsunade nodded slowly, continuing to run her fingers through Naruto's hair. He's fine, but he seems really exhausted. So much has happened in his life lately that I think it's taking its toll on him. Naruto-kun does a good job hiding it, but I worry. Shizen frowned at that and went to speak, only to pause as Jiraiya walked into the room. Shaking her head, deciding it best to let the godparents be with their godson, Shizen bowed to the Godame. I'll be going now, Tsunade-sama. If he wakes up, let him